I mean, I'm not trying to go full 8 hours. I'm just,
Yeah,
it's
that was the early shift. I
yeah,
was like, whoa.
exactly.
Yes, and we got a welcome Anil from Audria.
Thank you
So,
so much. I'm glad to be here.
yeah, so we're gonna get into it today. I'm a little frazzled because I just went crazy on the slide deck, and I have a little missing piece of equipment, so I don't understand what something happened. But we're gonna get into it because this is a really special week. We're gonna do our housekeeping with the quickness like we did last week. The estate of Prince Rogers Nelson is not affiliated, associated, or connected with What Did Prince Do This Week book club series. We're going week to week, not date to date. You can follow the detailed schedule at our book club website. That's the bit.ly link. You do not need the expanded edition. Me hold it. But there we go. But the schedule is based upon it. We're going to wait for Anil to hold up.
All right.
There we go. Let's do three. There we go.
go.
That's what we're reading because everybody, Anil,
Dwayne get paid. That's what we want to see.
Well, that we wanted to see Dwayne get paid, but also everybody's always asking, what are we reading?
Yes, yeah.
That's what we're reading. And these will be archived on YouTube channels, my YouTube channel, Polished Solid, Michael Ding's, I always do that. Michael Ding's YouTube, M. Dean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I always do that. And yes, Dr. Claw, Anil is in the house. I'm super excited that Anil is here. Good morning, Deanna. Good morning, Heavenly Games. Got to say your name right because I love it so much. And today's surprise is not Susan Rogers. However, we have a surprise for next week. So we have a very, very, very special guest that you'll have to come to see who it is because we do this for the people who show up every week. And obviously, if you want to share anything with us, please use the WDPDTW hashtag. There was actually a lot of conversation about the Eric Leeds conversation. And I kind of had you guys, luckily you kind of added me. So I was in on some of the conversations. But if you don't mind, try to use the WDPDW. I can't say work about it. And thank you, Stone Freak, that you will be there. And hello, Sniper Gamer. I'm trying to go fast because, like I said, we don't want to break the 4.5 hour episode. So week 31, I just want to give a really quick overview, also for you, Anil, of what's happened last month, because now we're going into our new month of 1983, which is August. So July, he basically did a Baby I'm a Star rehearsal, according to Dwayne's. All this is according to Dwayne's book. And Michael knows my running byline with this. I don't believe this. Yeah, it's just like, I think Prince did more than this, but obviously we don't have all the documentation.
This is what we know, not everything.
Yes, this is what
I like that. What did Prince do this week, aka what we know?
Yeah, not comprehensive, because it's also, there's some ladies in there. It's not on the calendar, he was a busy man.
Yes, I'm listening to James Brown so much lately, Anil, and what popped up in my head was, I'm a greedy man.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see that being a song.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So okay, we got a Baby I'm a Star rehearsal. We got basic tracking for this unreleased song, I Know What to Say to You, and then question mark. That's according to Dwayne. Writing and rehearsal of Purple Rain, and then maybe Darling Nikki in July, maybe in May. We don't really know, but some basic tracking happened. And some more. My alliterative brother, Blade Brown, is in the house. We got Myron in the house. And then we also have, there we go. Oh, I don't even have nothing set up. Look at me. I'm all slow today.
It's happening. It's time.
Yeah, sexy. There we go. And we got Kim, because we can't get started without Kim. ATL is in full effect today. So thank you all for being here. So that's July.
Am I late to understand that? Can you play that Love Sexy just one more time?
Sure.
Love Sexy.
for like some kind of church, like hallelujah.
I mean, that's what he was going
I
for,
guess that's
right?
what is probably what I just never just today. I was today's year old. What that just hit me like.
But you know what, Michael, you just like school me because I never really thought of it in that way, but it totally is.
Yeah, like, hallelujah.
That's so funny because I always heard it as like a bookend with Hundalicilia, right? Like these are both these, like, this is the proclamation. But
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, now we're just building.
We get off topic and they're all the time. So
I know. I watch.
for that. Please don't mind. Yeah. We'll get us started. So some of our so this is kind of like a Saturday salon. Obviously, it's a book club, but it's also a Saturday salon. But some folks are just here for the book club.
Salon?
Yeah, salon.
Yeah,
so like in the Harlem Renaissance, they used to have these salons where you would go over people's living rooms and just have conversations and listen to music.
But you mean like hair salon?
No.
It's right in between. It's in between the Harlem Renaissance salons and a hair salon. We got both.
Yeah, or barbershop. It could be also barbershop. I'll take that. And so like I actually like while it's a book club, I'm thinking that we're hanging out in each other's living rooms. It's very informal. And we don't have to kind of like stay on topic. So that's the reason why we kind of go off, and I love it, but some people don't. And I apologize to you guys, but that's how I roll. All right. So we're going to transition into August of 1983, and something extraordinary happened this week in August of 1983, a historic performance on August 3rd, a Wednesday, just like all kind of like, middle of the week, just another day, but like this historic occasion is happening. And
somebody went to this show after work. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is crazy. But that's what happened. Because it was, it was just like a Wednesday in Minneapolis. And you have like this historic occasion happening. It's like mind blowing to think about. So on Wednesday, we have our historic First Avenue show. If you're new to all of this, this is like one of the dates of all dates, August 3rd, 1983. If you're a Prince fan, you know this date by heart. I know this more than my own birth date. It's like August 3rd, 1983 is really, really important. And then I do want to put this, Blade Brown says, hallelujah, in terms of, he says, hallelujah, almost in the same tone as Love Sexy on Dance for Me. And let's see, Sabil, I liked Anil's joke. Prince was a very busy man juggling music and the many, many ladies. And welcome the Adult Symphony Channel. All right, so if you come in after this, I'm not going to welcome you, but you are loved because we got a lot to talk about. All right, so on Thursday, the tracks were reviewed from the previous night's concert, and they were reviewed at his home at Coward Trail Home. And as we all should know, this is actually what Prince always did. He did a show, he would review the show, but this time it was a very special show, and that, he was like thinking about what songs he would take, to overdub for his phenomenal Purple Rain album. And then on Saturday, we had no music recorded at the warehouse. And I think David Leonard might have been there by himself, but Dwayne talks about it in the book, and we're going to talk about it too. All right. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. So we got one live show, one studio visit this week. And because I realized I hadn't been doing that because I'm all distracted. So again, First Avenue, Minneapolis, capacity was 1,558 folks, and it was sold out on a Wednesday back in 1983.
Before Purple Rain came.
Before Purple Rain. Thank you. Michael, say that again.
Before Purple Rain came out.
Yeah, that's right. Sold out. And the engineers, in the truck were David Z and David Leonard. All right. So these were the songs. And this wonderful photo is one of my favorite photos by Jim Steinfeld, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And so the songs were Let's Go Crazy. He just comes out the bat with Let's Go Crazy, just like he does on the album, just like in the movie. It's like he already knew how he wanted things to go. it's kind of crazy to think about this. This is like almost a year before.
And opening
You know,
with a song nobody's heard. That
Right.
just blows my. Who does that?
Right.
Who does that? Nobody does that.
Yes, 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 Kim. And unfortunately, I really wanted one of my friends to come on today, but they couldn't, and they were at that show because they lived in Minneapolis. So
Wow.
I can't imagine what
That's
that must
history.
have been like. Yeah, yeah. But I wonder, like, one of the things I would love to ask him, like, did he know it was history, or because like some of the reviews that you read about, you know, they said that, you know, in certain songs, you know, people were quiet because, you know, it's the first time they're hearing it. I think they're trying to figure out, you know, do I like this song? Do I not like this song? And but I don't know, like those songs were so electric, you know, to take, you know, Electric Intercourse. I can't imagine that you wouldn't have been moved, even though that might have been your first time, you know, listening
Yeah,
to some songs.
I think you know, I was watching this right before we went live. I was looking at it. I think the fact that you don't know the music, but what you do know and you can feel is his performance, like
Yeah.
his whole
Yeah.
presentation and his confidence. It is so engaging just listening to him sing Electric Intercourse. If you don't know that song, no one did at the time, but the way he performed it, it was amazing. Like you could not help but respond to the way he was singing, and this voice and the emotion of it was,
Yeah.
it just seemed like it was so overpowering, which I can imagine it would make you like, I don't know what I just heard, but whatever that was amazing. Like,
I
and
think
then
it's
when you
also
hear it again, I think you'd be like, God, the song is actually good, but the performance overpowers it almost.
Yeah, nowadays in the days of social media, we assume we're going to know the set list, we're going to know all the songs. If we don't know the song, we know where it was. You know, I saw like as a tangent, but I saw somebody talking about like Taylor Swift played a new song in the set list, and I guess that's exciting to them because she didn't do that. And you know, for us, I was like, man, in 1983, you weren't going to know some of the songs because you might not have every record, you might not have known every B-side was out there.
Mhm.
There was no list, there was no Prince Vault, there's no place to go and see. Let me know every song. So a lot of times you walk into a show, then I think you would have maybe there's songs I don't know because I didn't get that record, or like literally my hometown didn't stock some of these singles that had some of these B-sides on it. So like you couldn't get to it. So you might just be like, oh, I might be out of the loop on that. Let me just enjoy it for what it is. So I think it's a different mindset to hearing something you don't know, where you're like, let me get up on this instead of did I check the box in my head on the
Right.
list of what's supposed to be here.
And I wonder that audience, just knowing that while we know who Prince is here, and you know he puts on a dope ass show, no matter what they're playing, I can imagine where they're like, yeah, he's playing on a Wednesday. It's gonna be a great time. I don't know what the hell he's gonna
Yeah.
be playing,
Well,
but I love music. So I'm
and
gonna
he
go.
did have, I mean, you had Little Red Corvette hit, you had 1999 hit. I mean, this wasn't, you know, this
Right.
was still, he was already a star. And I was just looking at the before we joined the flyer for the show, and the tickets are $25, right? Which is like, I don't know, $75, $100 now, right? So it's not cheap. So you're selling out on a Wednesday with like real, and it's standing room or whatever with real, you got to pay. So like that's a star. So I think they're already coming in warm to be like, we're gonna like this show.
Yeah, you know, you mentioning Little Red Corvette, like when I watched the show, because I watched the show in its entirety last night, and what I was surprised by, but not really, because I was so in, okay, I'm watching this historic performance about Purple Rain, but the crowd really responded to Little Red Corvette. Like that was their song.
Oh
Like they were
yeah, well, because it was still on the charts then. I mean, it was
yeah.
still airplay, all that. Like it was a hit at that moment. And I mean, because the thing that's wild to me is he doesn't play 1999. He plays DMSR to close.
Mhm.
Spoilers, that's the set list. But I think that's you know, that's such a shocker to me, because I'm like, that was the current album at the time. And it's like very Prince, like Prince was Prince even then, where he's like, I'm not giving you the hits, I'm not giving you the title track, like I'm going to choose what I'm going to play.
So there's someone wrote in here something that I wanted to respond to. Here we go. Blade Brown said it again, because I probably cut you off.
I was saying, thank you, Just Rules. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
All right. So Blade Brown said, the Foresight, hard to imagine what the next album would have sounded like if this show wasn't recorded.
Interesting.
Now, How do you guys feel about that? I have. I'm probably gonna go go another way than probably what you might say, but I'm curious, how would you guys think the next album would have gone
If this
if
was not
this,
recorded?
yeah, the live performance?
That's interesting. Yeah, because, well, I think we would have still probably gotten the same type of record. Because I almost feel like when I'm thinking, I'm just off the top, when I think about the album Purple Rain when I was first listening to it, the fact that those songs were live did not dawn on me
Mm-hmm.
as I was listening to them. I knew they sounded exactly like what was in the movie, but I knew the movie was a movie. So I didn't think that this was necessarily live. It because the way it made it sound like it was in the studio. So I think he would have still could have done the same songs and it would have just been recorded however they were recorded.
Yeah, that's sort of my feel too. Is like these were the songs that were coming. I think he knew they were hits. I think the fact that they were done as live with overdubs was because of the energy of the moment and because the band was so good and it was locked in and all that. But I think they would have come anyway. I mean, I think I remember the surprise of the Purple Rain Deluxe Edition was the studio Electric Intercourse. I think none of us really knew that existed, right? And that shows that this was all sort of, he had the plan. And I mean, I think we've all heard that story during the filming of Purple Rain, where he takes to William Bland, the script writer, the tape of like, here's all these songs I've made, and we're going to figure out which ones to put in the movie. And I think some of these are on there because we know songs like Baby I'm a Star dated back for years before. So I think, that's something where this was coming. Like he knew he had the hits. He knew he had the depth. The strategy of live plus overdub, and he did again in some of the songs on like Sign of the Times or whatever. I think that he realized that it had the energy where he was that good live that it was going to help him do that. But I think that was just a technique, not necessarily it was a negotiable. And actually even some of the stuff like Let's Go Crazy from this show was not used on the album. They recorded it again in the warehouse. Right. So I think they just knew, like, we've got it live. Like we know what we're doing, but we're going to decide whether that's the take or not. So, yeah, I think there's a negotiation there. But the thing that I come back to for this show, though, is like, of hits, just hits, like Let's Go Crazy, I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, Purple Rain. Right. And it's the debut of all of those. Two of those are, or I guess Let's Go Crazy is the only number one there. The other are the top 10. Right. I think it's a strong argument for the greatest pop music concert ever. Right. I think you can make a very credible argument for like live show importance in pop music history. There is no other live show where you can claim debut of a band, debut of 4 different top 10 hits all at one show. You know what I mean? And literally anybody, you can, whatever you want to point to, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, like Stevie Wonder, whatever you want to point to, the greats. I don't think there's anybody else who's ever done it. So I think that's sort of and I'm always cautious about overstating because obviously we love Prince and we think that whatever he does is the best.
I don't think it's an overstatement.
But you take Michael Jackson, you're like, he did a lot of amazing shows, but there's not one show. I mean, I think what's the Jackson's album when they do was it Shake Your Body live, and that became a single and got airplay and all that, during the maybe it's the Destiny tour. They're doing that. And it's like
Motown 25. That's it.
Motown 25, right? So Motown 25, and that was like lip sync, and the song was already a hit. And you know what I mean? And, obviously, no disrespect. It's the Moonwalk is iconic, like all those things. But it's one song and it's one moment. And he said, do that show and have 4 hits. And if that's the first time anybody's ever heard Billie Jean and Human Nature, and and whatever, and then you're like, okay, then you're in this league, and you just cannot point to another show where you're like in a catalog's worth of hits showed up, fully formed, brand new band that had never played together in that configuration, fully formed. I think that's that moment I think about, like, in retrospect, because like I didn't know about this show when it happened. I didn't even realize how much of the Purple Rain album was live-ish when I heard it. I was like, oh, it just sounds like, because they would dub audience and noise all over songs all the time. You have probably Prince would do that, but I think of like Gotta Give It Up. Like Marvin's got this like, hey, it's a party, and it's like there's no party. You know what I mean? Like that's all added. And so to know that was like a real crowd and that real energy You found that out later, and you'd be like, man, there's no parallel to this.
So,
Can I just add to the one thing to the question again? I think no matter if that show is recorded or not, you would have still gotten the biggest song off of that album, which was "When Doves Cry."
Yep,
would have still been the first single, and it's still
When Doves Cry was studio.
The whole thing. So
yeah, Let's Go Crazy was at the warehouse. I mean, the most notorious song is Darling Nikki. That's all him in the studio. So there's a lot of this that is also an incredible studio record, because I think of like 1999 is probably like his best, like most studio records, like him locked in there, and there's still a lot of that energy on the record too.
I think, that's the point I was going to go towards. Like 1999 was such a fantastic studio project, and I'm in the minority. I don't put one above the other, but in terms of Electric Intercourse, I love the studio version of Electric Intercourse. I know some people are like, the live version is so much better than the studio version. That's not me. I sort of see them as neck and neck, and obviously Prince Studio versus Prince Live are two totally different things.
He's like two different artists.
Yeah, I say like he's like two, and like what I love about Studio Prince is that he's more experimental, at least during this period. So I think that if Purple Rain would have been a totally studio record, it would have had a different feel. And this kind of goes like watching this performance last night, and Celie kind of commented on this, was like, it was really a bridge, because, when he comes back out during DMSR in his, leg warmers and bikini, yes, that's Dirty Mind, but that's also controversy, because he was still bikini and leg warmering during the controversy phase. And for me, this was like a transition show. Like he was still holding on to that. And I love that he held on to some of the controversy Rude Boy elements, because this show was really raw. And another thing that I loved about the show, compared to the Purple Rain tour, was that Bobby Z was on acoustic drums and not those electronic drums, and it made a huge difference. But like, even
because they hadn't figured all that stuff out yet either. I mean, they didn't have the money to go and figure out how we're going to do electronic drums.
Yes, but I wish they kind of hadn't figured that out, because that's one thing I don't like about watching like the Purple Rain tour now. I mean, obviously I didn't know what was going on in real time when I went to go see that show. All I knew was that Prince was live, and I got tickets, and I'm happy. But, like after listening to a lot of live shows, I never like pulling out Purple Rain, except for, I've said this before, Irresistible Bee and Possess particularly is like when I want to watch, but it's primarily because of the electronic drums. And another thing is, like, I actually wish he would have kept Let's Go Crazy from the First Avenue show. It's rawer, if I can say that right. Yeah. It's like, it's more controversy, Rude Boy, 1999-ish.
Yeah. Although I love that breakdown, because like the thing about the studio version is that long version. Yeah. And man, that was, again, like that was one of the first 12 inches I ever had. And you're just like, and it was, now in retrospect, it sounds a lot like Vanity 6, right? They really like that breakdown. Especially, I know they're circulating. If you've ever heard the stems, the raw tracks in there, and you hear the different parts in that extended part of Let's Go Crazy. And I'm like, that doesn't, and that actually is the difference between studio Prince and live Prince, right? I think like there's a difference in terms of like how he thinks about production, because he's trying to put on a show. It's a different thing, but also lyrically, he's very different live than he is in like the deepest sort of studio. Like, I don't think you would get Maybe I'm Just Like My Mother on stage. You know what I mean? Like, that is not stage Prince. That is studio Prince. Like, you don't get that same, or whatever, even later, the Ballad of Dorothy Parker. Like, that's studio Prince. And on stage Prince is like, let's get this crowd going, and not like, let's be introspective about my relationship with my parents. Like, that's not, that's not like, throw your hands in the air if you got issues with your dad. Like, that's a different, that's a different vibe. So I think it is like, you get different production, you get different lyrics out of live versus stage Prince, studio Prince.
So I want to answer this question from Realign the DJ. So actually, this was performance, coincidentally, you wouldn't think this, is actually before the James Brown concert. That actually happens on August 20th, or I might have the date wrong, but it's late August. And what is interesting,
it is August 20th,
yeah. What's really interesting about these two performances is that Michael has already talked about Prince's confidence during this August 3rd show. He had confidence, but it was like effortless, and he was enjoying himself. And he was also a little, in my opinion, a little bit more intimate. And it might be because he was at home in a smaller venue. He felt like he was at home versus, because I was surprised when I realized, oh, this actually did happen after the James Brown, Michael Jackson performance, because he was a little shy. He didn't seem as confident.
It's the only time we've ever seen him shook on stage.
Yeah.
But
he was super weird.
I would be James Brown.
I mean, it's justifiable. It's the most justifiable thing in the world. I mean,
you got Michael Jackson. Whatever you say about it, that's somebody Prince had on their wall back then.
Yeah, 100%. But actually, I think there's a couple things that are interesting about that. I think the part is one. I think that like at the end of the August 3rd show, bringing back the leg warmers and all that stuff. To me, it does feel like he's like telling his hometown, like, I'm still me. This is still who you know. This is what you saw. Like, I'm still me. I'm gonna give you an album cut. Like, we're gonna go back and do it like we did. And I think that's a really big part of like, I didn't change. And then the other part of being at that. So this show is August 3rd. The James Brown show in LA is on the 20th. And the reason they're out there is they're working on the overdubs of the strings on Purple Rain. So Lisa and Wendy are doing arrangements, on the cello part and all that stuff that happens at the end of the song. Lisa's adding piano parts, all that kind of stuff. That part of like, we took a break from working on the song Purple Rain to go to this show. And then, it's like winning a game show. Like, they tap you on the shoulder and Michael said he wants you to come up. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, nobody has that. Well, and also in Michael Jackson's entire career, who did he ever say, you got to bring him up? Right? In Michael Jackson's career, I cannot think of someone where he's like, this person is in the crowd and you got to bring him up. So like, I could be wrong, but I know Michael's career pretty well. And there isn't another moment like that. So like, there is something just really, really unique. And for Michael to know that while, 1999 is on the radio or whatever, but Purple Rain hasn't happened. And Michael is watching while, of course, thinking like, let me make the biggest records ever been made. And he's like, you got to bring him up here. Like, that cosign, I think you can't underestimate that. Like, that's just because we always think of, at least me, I always think of it in terms of Prince. Like, this is Prince going up there and let's see how he reacts. And the weird stuff with Chick taking him to the stage, all that stuff. But I think there's such a shift with like Michael being like, that's not just James Brown anointing, because James would bring people up. I mean, he was sort of, because he was the Godfather, right? He could just, let me give you a shot and let me do the thing. And he made a lot of stars and whatever. But Michael didn't have proteges. Michael didn't have, let me put out 10 records under your name, under Bobby Bird's name, under Len Collins' name. He didn't do that. So it's a very, very different thing, I think.
Yeah,
Thank God there was no social media back then.
Oh, my Lord.
Viralist video.
Yeah, and stands picking teams. And I mean, we had stands picking teams before there was social media with these two, but.
That would be the meme that like posted.
Yeah. Oh, man. We can get for that.
So Celia saying, is Prince being thrust into something that he didn't and couldn't control? He hated not being in control, and it showed.
Yeah.
Combine that with trying to impress Brown and outdo Jackson is disaster. We're going to talk more about this in a couple more weeks, but I will say, because I actually watched that again last night after watching the First Avenue show. And one of the things that was heartbreaking to me is like during that performance when Prince does his mic theatrics, gymnastics, James Brown wasn't watching.
Yeah.
And I really do think, because he kept kind of looking back towards him, I really think he wanted James Brown to see that.
Yeah, he did. He 100%. You can see it. He's the kid that had been practicing in front of the mirror, said, I want to show James that I'd watched what he did. And because Michael had gotten to do that. And I think that's a big part of it. But I also think there's a straight line. This is a divergence, but I think there's a straight line from this to 2 years later why he doesn't do We Are the World. Right? It's like, I don't control this. It's Michael's show. I'm not going to win here. Let me do what I do in my way. I'm not risking this, and I think that's a big factor.
James is just back there. Michael, how you doing?
Well, and I mean, in fairness, Michael was the biggest star that ever existed in the history of the world at that moment, right? Like, everybody in the world's eyes were on Michael at that moment. So,
yeah.
Danny says Michael had Rockwell. That's not right.
Hilarious.
That's not right.
But but thinking about this James
Oh.
Brown performance, one thing that I think there are two performances that were critical in Prince's career that made him level up as a performer, not as a musician. This was one of them. The other one was opening for Rolling Stones and, being, have everything thrown at him. I think he was like, I'm going to become one of the best performers ever. And then I think with this show, he really, because like, if you look at now, if you watch the First Avenue show, he's still doing Mick Jagger moves. And I thought he had let go of that, in the 1999 tour. We were seeing a lot of that, finger waving in the Dirty Mind tour.
Mick Light. Yeah.
Mick Light. And he actually brought Mick Light back for the First Avenue show. But I think after the August 20th episode, he was like, I need to,
I gotta do me.
Game.
Yeah.
I gotta up the game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that show was really critical.
There's so much growth in this moment, though. I mean, that's the thing you see is this he's back kind of like practicing. Like he's back in the shop. Like, I'm gonna figure this out. The other thing too is like thinking about this being the first Revolution show. And I mean, obviously a lot of them had played together before, but they hadn't played in a minute either. They'd had like a little warm-up show 6 months before, something like that, maybe March or something. This is the prior show. So 5 months before, and I mean, they're playing in the warehouse and all that kind of stuff, but like, this is your debut show? Like, that is just wild. There's bands that don't get that locked in after 10 years on the road together. And he's calling out the changes and he's doing the whole thing. And like, there's not even Purple Rain, like, the songs are overdubbed, but it's not because there's some mistake. It's not because somebody missed a cue. Like I think like we take for granted that he would rehearse everybody that hard, but like that is just unreal.
One quick thing, I see somebody said the Michael Jackson, it was a setup. The great thing though about this, and I was bringing up that viral video thing, but I'm thinking about what would have happened with Prince. It's a great thing that there wasn't that we never saw that video until decades later.
Yeah, right? 15 years later, something like that.
And I think that's one thing that Prince and people of that era, they were making mistakes. They was getting booed off stage.
Yeah.
But we never saw it. So it only affected him personally and maybe the few people that were there, but it didn't have to linger on with them. He could move past it, go back and get better and not have to be remembered.
It was not part of his brand.
Yeah, it was, and we never saw it. It was not. So there's a lot of things that we never got to see of Prince, and I think was great. So it didn't get in the way of his artistry, and he could move on. Because if we would have saw that stuff, we would have kept talking about it over and over.
And that was true until the We Are the World stuff, which was, I mean, I think it was unfair and bullshit, but like I think there was that was his social media moment because they picked it up and they made the SNL skits and they put it in Rolling Stone and they did all those things, and I think that hit him really hard because he'd never been on that side of like, we're going to gossip about you and twist it, take it out of context and do all that stuff. But I mean, I think in terms of like Michael Jackson setting up, like, I just don't buy it because like he wouldn't have called him on stage. I mean, the flex is you sort of say, you watch me, right? If he was trying to put Prince in his place, he'd be like, we're up here, you're down there. Yeah. Right. Like it's obviously love. It's obviously love. There's no reason, especially just
like, we're going to party like it's 1999. Thanks. How you doing?
No, he would have taken a line out of the James Brown book and said, "Watch me."
Yes, I got it. I got it. That's right. But I think that's sort of that part there, which is the like, it is love. I that's one of those things is to get that cosign at that stage when you haven't been what you're going to become as a superstar by those two. I don't think Prince ever took it that way, but I think that is that moment where like before you even had the biggest album of your career, the best to ever do it said you are worthy to be on the stage with us, and he never saw it that way. It's clear he never saw it that way. You know, I think any other artist of that caliber, well, not there aren't any, but like anybody else in that moment would have been like, yeah, you know what, I could have done better, but I was so glad to be there. But he didn't have that energy about that ever. Not once did he say like, man, can you believe I got up on that stage? That was great. Like.
No. So let's go back to our slide and just let's like, because I didn't read through these. So just right out the gate, because that's where we left off.
We didn't get anywhere. 4 hours, here we come.
It'll be a long show.
You have
too many hits.
Too many hits. Yeah. So let's go crazy. I was shocked that, but not in the context of 1983, that he followed that up with When You Were Mine. How did you guys feel about that follow up?
Was he playing When You Were Mine a lot back then? Because I feel like he did it on Dirty Mind, but it wasn't the kind of cult hit thing it became later.
I don't, I can't,
Am I wrong?
Can someone tell us in the chat, was he playing that on the Controversy tour?
No, it looks like it was. So I'm wrong. I didn't know, because I feel like that got cemented with like when it was included on like the hits, where it was like, yeah, this was never a single, but this is a, sort of a fan hit.
I always felt like, and I wasn't even into Prince at the time, but just reading back on it, it always seemed to me like that song was always like a special song. Like it just stands out on the album, and it's like, you always got to do that live.
It feels like the first time that he really nailed how to make a pop hook in that way, for sure. So yeah, I mean, that's the job it's doing, I guess.
So I just want to respond to Atara. I've never seen you here before. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your kind words. So we're essentially reading Dwayne Tudall's book, which is Prince in the Studio Sessions, 1983 and 1984. There we go. And we're actually going week by week in 1983. So this book covers 83 and 84. So we're going to be reading this book over 2 years. Yes, I said it, 2 years. And then after these 2 years, we're going to follow up and we're going to read, if we're still alive.
Let me be alive.
Yes, which is 85 and 86. So that's what we're doing. So yeah.
Then we're going to read all of Wikipedia.
Lord. What did Prince do in this life?
Yes. When we're all like in the whatever they call it, I can't remember. Like when we're put into like that special consciousness on the interwebs, we're still going to be talking about Prince, because that's how we do. So the third song, I'm actually kind of skipping around my slide deck. He performs A Case of You, which is a Joni Mitchell song. And for me personally, I actually found out about Joni Mitchell through Prince, but I didn't know about this performance in real time, but actually through the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, because of, They Helped Me. And so like, I was like, okay, what is that? So then I went down this huge Joni Mitchell rabbit hole, because Prince likes Joni Mitchell. So I'm supposed to like Joni Mitchell too, because Prince does. And it actually happened that The Hissing of Summer Lawns is one of my favorite albums of all time. I adore that album. So I am thankful for Prince for introducing me to Joni. But A Case of You is essentially off of one of her most renowned albums, which is Blue, which was on Reprise, 1971. And that's the cover. I love that monochromatic. I'm a designer by trade. And I'm also right now, I'm really into Jack Robinson. You'll figure out why. And this is going to be a little mini rabbit heel. So it'll be quick. So these are some 1968 photos by Jack Robinson. It's actually in this book that I have. It's all about books called Jack Robinson on Show. And basically, Joni was photographed. These photos were from 1968. And she had just released her first album and was about to appear in a concert at Carnegie Hall. But the reason why I'm showing these Jack Robinson pictures, and you should know that her first album, or it was Song to a Seagull, and they actually named it Joni Mitchell, because if you see the cover, if you have the cover, they actually cut off the words. And so no one knew that was the title. And they just made it, they made it eponymous, so like Joni Mitchell, but is actually Song to a Seagull. And it was recorded at Sunset Sound. So for people who don't like my rabbit holes, there was a connection there, Prince connection, Sunset Sound. There you go. All right. And then, so Jack Robinson also photographed Miss Tina Turner in 1969. And these photos were, and this is my favorite photo that he shot of her. I have it on my wall, very, very large. I see it every single day. Love, love, love. And he photographed those shots on November 25th, 1969. And Tina and Ike were on tour with the Rolling Stones. And we just talked about Mick Jagger. And there you go, your 3 degrees of separation.
I mean, he's even got Warren Beatty looking good here. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, who's that? I was like, he's looking sharp. I only know old Warren Beatty. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. This is why.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. Oh, and then while I'm here, since we're talking about a phenomenal book, let me see if I can. Hopefully I can find it with the quickness because I don't have it. He has this amazing shot of Roberta Flack that I had never seen before until I got this book. Oh, I'm going to go full screen. You're going to have to deal with me, unfortunately. So this is one of the iconic shots from that same Tina.
Yeah.
That's an incredible shot of Tina. And then let me see if I can find, hold on one second. And here's another shot. Since we're going down a rabbit hole, you guys kind of see that one. Amazing. Then I also love the shot of Diana Ross and Grand Central.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Isn't that beautiful? And then let's see.
Man, I never seen that one. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's an amazing shot. And then let me see if I can find this. Oh, I think I just passed it. Nope. We got Edgar Winter in here. Let's see, so many folks. I'd like to be able to find. Oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. This shot is amazing. Let me move this out the way. Gotta see it. And that is Roberta Flack.
I love that.
Yeah, so Jack Robinson is one of my favorite photographers of all time, and I just had to take that little mini break to give him some love. All right, so Prince Vault, which we love, obviously talks about A Case of You, and one of the things that piqued my interest when, putting together a slideshow, Prince Vault says, because of the performance of A Case of You, possibly Prince may have recorded another studio version at an earlier date, even though, he would eventually record, some versions for the One Night Alone. And obviously you have the piano and microphone, 1983 piano. So I'm wondering, did he record a studio version during 1983? It's highly possible. And I would want to know if that's in the vault, just because, he performed it at the First Avenue show. He has it on a rehearsal tape. It's totally possible. So then, in terms of A Case of You, again, we have it on 1996 on One Night Alone. Again, the 1983 Prince and microphone. And then it's also the version on One Night Alone. It's also on this tribute to Joni Mitchell, which was released in 2007. It's like trimmed a little bit on the 2007. So to get the full one, you have to listen to the 1996 one. So let me go
One
back.
Night Alone is 2000, though. I think you're thinking of there's another record on 96, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably just messed up my dates because I'm constantly this because I'm always
there's a lot,
yeah. So
sorry, I'm being fussy.
No, I want to be fussy. And then obviously he performed it on the first show of the last show in Atlanta.
Yeah.
On April 14th.
It feels like it was with him at all. Like there's that Case of You and Shaka's Sweet Thing feel like the two songs that he just kept revisiting at each of the milestone moments. Like each of the sort of like, here's a new chapter in my life, here's something, or like, when his father passed, or all these different big milestones in his life. Like he comes back to them. Like he had to know this August 3rd show was a milestone. It's the new band and all the new songs and whatever. And it's like this he had these like anchors, I think, that he came back to all the time. Because I think he's 13 when Case of You comes out. I'm like, what was going on in his life when he first hears Joni Mitchell Blue, and he's like, yeah, this is it. And then he brings that back. Like I said, his father passes, or like, this is the new me, a new band and a new look and all that. Or, even obviously with the live album you know, and doing the One Night Alone stuff. I think that was like he was realizing he was at a different stage there too. Like I think there are all these sort of like inflection points. For me, it's always like the first time I ever saw him live was at Paisley, and he opened with the KCU on an acoustic guitar, you know, and I'm 5 feet away. Yeah. And it was like, and it had been they had all kinds of like equipment problems or whatever. And he was really clearly annoyed, like very, like visibly frustrated. And then he just comes out and it's just him and the guitar and he plays KCU. And I was like, man, this is, you know, it was incredible, obviously, to see him, but it was also like clearly like that's him like finding his calm, you know, and then he went into Sometimes It Snows. I mean, it was just like a really,
wow.
They're in some place for him. Yeah, I mean, you start the night, you're just crying, you know.
What a way to start a show! And then
that was the first time I ever saw him.
That was your first show.
Yeah, and I was 5 feet away. This was 95. This is Love for One Another, and we went up. Yeah, we went up to Paisley, and it was it's like it is that Willy Wonka thing, like winning the golden ticket, and you go in and. You know, it's 2 a.m. and when he starts and all that, you know, classic Prince show stuff. But I always think of that with this August 3rd show, which is like, that's like, I feel like it's like a reset button for him to be like, you know, and also that would be especially unexpected in that moment, right? He's still like peak bad boy, peak, like, you know, too hot for MTV, like whatever. And then comes out with like, here's my new band. And we're doing and this is a,
Wendy. First time
Wendy's there. It's also this is a charity show, you know. This is a fundraiser show, and he's on. I think he's a little bit on Good Behavior too, because it's like it's for the kids, you know. And so you come out with that Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, a little bit until he comes back, as I say, Jamie Starr, and we will. So actually, TP is asking, wasn't he 13 when his dad kicked him out? I don't remember the exact age, but
I think it's all fuzzy. I think there's a lot of back and forth. I don't think there's a one date, but definitely he's going through turmoil at that point for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so then after A Case of You, we have Computer Blue. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we were talking last week about swinging. I think that Bobby Zig was swinging on Computer Blue. It just has this like extra, I don't know, oomph to it. I really love the live performance of Computer Blue from this particular show. It's really interesting, like the songs that he decided to keep an overdub and the ones that he actually decided to redo, because I would have probably done the opposite of what he did. And obviously Prince is Prince. Like I would have kept the Let's Go Crazy, the Computer Blue, and the Electric Intercourse live, and maybe did some overdubs on those. And I would have done, you know, like, you know, Baby I'm a Star, I Would Die For You, and Purple Rain maybe over. That's
oh, you're the editor. Yes. But you know, you listen music first.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that's part of what you're getting to. And I think he was really, like I said, the Computer Blue is another one of those, like that's a studio song for him, because you see how much he tinkered with it, how many edits and different versions there were, including the lyrics were a big part of that to him. So he's probably listening with that lyrical ear and the almost the engineer's ear that he had, and doing that. Because like the other thing I think about with Computer Blue is it's a very complex suite, right? It's a very sophisticated song. I don't think his bands could have necessarily always done that at every point. Like I think you get a band to a certain point. I think Wendy's introduction helps with being locked in on that. I mean, Des is obviously incredible. I think they just weren't trying to do that. And so I think there's a real like confidence of like the band can do something this ambitious, or I can lead them to do something this ambitious, that I think comes from that. But it's also, Computer Blue is interesting musically because the melody is not one you'd write on a guitar. Right. It's clearly, it comes from that Father Song thing, comes from the piano piece first. And it's because it's very awkward. You play it on a guitar and you're doing a lot of weird changes. And it's like, oh, this is a piano piece on guitar. I think that just shows his like writing across, like giving harder things for the band to do and sort of saying like, I'm going to trust they're going to carry me. That's just such a, I think that's how you end up with the studio version. Right. It's you're like, I got to be able to control every note. The control freak takes over versus the vibe of being on stage.
Yeah, but that vibe is cool.
Can I say about Computer Blue real quick? Just as you're talking about Computer Blue, to me is to what Ballad of Dorothy Parker is the Sign of the Times. When I think the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, I'm like, whoa, that's Prince on some advanced.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, whoa, this dude's serious.
Mhm.
Listening to 1999 and then hearing the full version Computer Blue, that's like, oh, okay, this cat is on some other. It's like,
This
yo,
is not casual.
yeah, this actually, I think, go back to the other question. If that concert wasn't used or whatever, I think this song, if it was the full version, would have been the standout of the album. Actually, would have been like, yo, Prince is awesome. Like he's complex and it's the streets, but it's on some other technical wizardry and
But
playing.
the contrast between this and When You Were Mine, right? When You Were Mine is like it's like a nursery rhyme level. Like the first time you heard it, you can sing along. And Computer Blue, I literally have no idea what's going to be happening in 10 seconds of this song. Like it could be anything. It could be any instrument. It could be any structure. And like when y'all were talking to Eric Leeds last week, and he's talking about the like, does Prince have the fluency in these, jazz complexity? And like I think it's well observed, and he knows better than anybody about that. But this shows like, okay, you can say Prince had a pop vocabulary that he worked from, or he had a traditional blues vocabulary that he worked from. But this shows like, okay, that's no limit. That you can still just bend people's brains, with that. Say he has a constrained palette, you can do anything with it. And this sort of proves you don't have to know every set of changes Charlie Parker ever did in order to make something that's going to be really complex and challenging.
What did you say, Michael? You said this was his crystal ball?
This is crystal ball. To me, it's the same type of like,
yeah,
I'm gonna do some next. It's gonna be
next level.
Apocalyptic. It's gonna be, you're gonna get you that. It's gonna draw you in. It's got a climax. It's the ultimate.
The scope is enormous. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff musically that I loved about Rainbow Children was the next time I felt like that, where I'm like, yo, he's going some other place. And it's not a standard 3-minute pop song and here's your hook and your chorus and whatever. It's like, this is me really trying to challenge you. And I think especially pretty much all around the world in a day felt like he was in that space. He's like, I'm going to take you with me.
He was on his AI, tinfoil Kufi.
Yeah. Way back home. Yeah.
He was on Did Poor Lonely Computer. Yeah, he was early with it, man.
Yeah. Can I go on a tangent there?
Yeah, of course.
Computers. So if you watch the live show, it starts with that.
Who we got here on the goddamn show. Of course, this brother.
But I'm a guest. I'm trying to be respectful.
No, you're not a guest. You're family. Remember, we're in the living room.
Yeah, as long as I'm going on it, can I tell you, it's such a joy because I'm usually in the comments with everybody to be on. I appreciate you both so much. You do so much work for the community. Michael, you and I met for the first time, was it 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
3.
Yes.
And after knowing each other, folks should know 30 years we've known each other online, which I know I'm not trying to snitch on how old we are, but I'm like 30 years to know somebody and be like, this person's going to have a thoughtful look at this and get this and the context and even the trust where you're like, is it just me or this wasn't that great? And you can only say that with, family, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, I'm not really feeling it, but am I missing something? Like that stuff. And then, D'Angelo, you just convene us all. And that is a powerful role. That is building community. It's one of the great gifts that Prince gave us is to bring us all together, So I'm so grateful for that. I'm going to nerd out though. So you watch the video and I had the like janky VHS copy of a copy back in the day. And it opens with that shot of Prince. And I think it's one of the same shots that ended up in that Warhol Supreme Court case, is what they use as the basis for the art here. And they had that like low, like 80s computer looking animation. So I went on a little journey on Twitter back when we still had Twitter to try and find who made the RIPX, to try and find who made the art there. And so First Avenue would do computer animations, and it's probably like an Apple II computer or something. I don't know what it was, of the artists of the time, whoever was playing. And I got the woman's name. I'll track it down. I'll share it after. But they don't have a clear idea for sure of like who actually made these animations. But that jumped out to me when I first saw that VHS tape of the show. The first time I saw it, probably back in the 90s, I was like, man, where were they doing that at? Where you had like this computer animated drawing of the artist, because that was cutting edge. I mean, that's cutting edge in the 90s, let alone to do in 83, because you would just put up like a name on a card and put a light on it and made this is who's playing last night, tonight, and here's the marquee. And that to me was always linked with hearing Computer Blue in this show, was like he was talking about the future. He's talking about technology. He's talking about the way these things were going to shape our lives and our worlds, and it just seemed so appropriate to me that it also opens with like, here's a computerized image of this guy, because I'd never seen that before. I mean, I think it's the first time I ever saw a computer drawing a picture of Prince was the opener to this show.
Yeah, actually watching it again last night, I was like, that was pretty sophisticated for the tools that they had back
Oh
then.
yeah, yeah.
And I too, and when I was watching, I was like, how did they do that? And whoever did it actually did it with some love, because it wasn't just thrown together. It was very well done.
And you couldn't just like, nowadays we just point a digital camera at something, capture and do whatever. Like you had to actually like draw it. You had to do this work. The woman's name that they guess would have done it is Ruth Mason. Ruth Mason was the AV at First Ave at the time, and she would have been doing this literally just as a labor of love. And it was created in-house at First Avenue. Andrea Swenson helped me find that. I just wanted to call that
awesome
out. Yeah.
And shout out to Andrea. We love her.
Yeah, she does the work.
Yes. That's all. That's, we work it like a job. That's what we do. Michael would say. I love saying that, as Michael would say, as Michael is right here with us. I just get a kick out of that every single time. I love that phrase. I say it all the time. So, Anil, you were talking about how When You Were Mine compared to Computer Blue just seems, a little odd, and I thought it was an odd song to put in the set list. But watching it last night, I think one that was even odder was, why did you follow Computer Blue with Delirious? I was like, I thought that was really odd. I don't know about you guys.
I felt like that's just keeping the crowd. Here's a song here's a crowd pleaser. Delirious was a hit too, right? Let's not forget. I'm trying to remember when that single would have come out. Would have been right around then, because it was one of the later singles on the record. So that, I feel like that's all that is. It's just like, he always did that, like one for you, one for me. Like, let me challenge you a little bit, and then let me give you a little bit of candy, and then let's keep it moving,
Yeah.
Oh, the single came out August 17th, 1983. So it might have already been at radio.
Right.
But it came out 2 weeks after. I mean, that moment, there's just so much going on. Rick James' Cold Blooded is a month before. Madonna's debut is a week before. I mean, you just have like hits and hits and hits coming out. And yeah, so I think Delirious was like, this song, it's about to be a hit. This is the current record. Let me give it to you.
So Kim always gives us a time check. I can't believe it's already one.
This is a business. You ain't too far gone to see that yet.
You have no idea. So I had to do this.
You got a Billy Sparks us already? All right.
Yes. So I put together these decks. This deck took me about 10 hours to do, because I have so many images, and I apologize for the year error. I'm always having errors because I'm trying to squish it in between my day job. So I apologize. I really
no. That's. I mean, you're doing the work. When I say like, here's the other data, it's just love.
Yeah. No, but it's just
sorry.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that one of the Kim, we might go past our two, and then Michael and Neil, you guys have to leave. I totally understand, but I put a lot of time into this slide deck, and we go.
No, let's do it. I've abandoned my child to this. I got focus. I'm neglecting responsibilities. This is it.
Yes, and also it's a pretty epic, date that we're talking about, and Prince deserves it. So that's why I'm doing it. Not for us, but for him. He deserves it. So we're gonna give him. Yes. There you go. That's what we're gonna do. So after Delirious, did anyone want to say anything about Delirious, the live performance?
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
It's never been my favorite song. It totally is him doing his bit of rockabilly.
Yeah.
Stray Cats record comes out that I'm trying to remember. It's right about then too. So like, he's in the moment. He knows what's hitting, and he wants to have some of it.
But don't you think it would have been like a 1-2 power punch if you would have went from Computer Blue directly into Electric Intercourse?
Now I think that, but for a crowd that's never heard either of them to go 20 straight minutes of like, let me just challenge you. That's a tough. He's good, but like that's tough to bring people along. Yeah,
everybody already is still like, whoa,
Yeah. Stray Cats, Rant and Rave of Stray Cats comes out August 15th, 1983. I mean, he's right on the moment.
August 15th.
Yeah, so that's their, but that might have been their second record. So I don't know their catalog that well. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like he's just right on the moment. He's like, this is hitting right now, and I'm going to give you what's hitting, and kind of bring it back and forth. Like this is definitely also like after show vibes. Like he's not like, let me build an arc through the set list like he does on a main stage show. He's like, let me play what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why this show is so powerful, because it does feel more like an after show, like what we're used to. So we're going to move on to one of the, I don't know, I say it's the scream of all screams. Electric Intercourse, when he hits that scream, I mean, it is a powerful, if you don't feel that, you're dead. That's all I got to say.
What it says about that song is it takes Beautiful Ones to displace it, which is as strong as it gets. You know what I mean? Like you can't, you got to really come with it if you're going to be like, that's not making the album. And I love Beautiful Ones too. But I mean, I think Electric Intercourse had the benefit of being like that. It was hard to find, and it was on bootlegs, and it was obscure. And you felt like you won something when you found it. You know?
Yeah. So like, just real quick, Michael, I think, you know, this is me, and obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think he might have taken Electric Intercourse out because Vanity was no longer in the movie. And I feel, because I think Purple Rain would have been a different film with Vanity in it. And I think it would have been, we talked about this, darker, not because, you know, Vanity's dark or anything. It's just that the vibe that they had, you know, thinking of that Rolling Stone cover again, like that Danger, her hand down, you know, his pants and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think Electric Intercourse would have fit Apollonia's character in the movie, but I haven't changed my mind. I'm not a big fan of Beautiful Ones. I never have been. I don't like the dun 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 dun. Like it's just so repetitive. I would have taken Electric Intercourse, Michael, any day.
I can't.
So
I'm not.
Like, how did this?
I'm leaving to the commenters. I can't go there with you.
By the Beautiful
I'm not
Ones.
touching that.
Well, I would go ahead, brother. Let you finish.
But I'm just gonna say that I feel in the depths of my soul, Electric Intercourse. I feel like the Beautiful Ones is more pretty. I really don't believe him, but I believe him on Electric Intercourse. So that's.
You don't believe? Do you want him or do you want me? Because I want
No.
You don't believe that?
No,
Right.
I think it's a game.
All right.
I think he's just trying to. That's me. But you know, I don't like Arms of Orion either. So people already know that. So you guys should not be surprised.
I mean, I'm the last Arms of Orion person for that. Nobody's going to bat for Arms of Orion. Nobody's playing that at their wedding.
No, I don't think. But I'm sure.
I mean, I even like that song, and I know people hate that song. It's all right.
All right. So, what is your take on Electric Intercourse, Michael? I cut you off, and I apologize.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, well, listen to the way you broke it down. I think, you know, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think in terms of the Beautiful Ones, the performance of it in the movie for me was the most striking thing. When you see him do the, that was such a whoa. You know, and I think even just hearing it without performance, but to actually see it is
it's the best acting he does in the movie.
You could argue that. And I think that is the clincher. The same way, though, if you're going to use Electric Intercourse, that live version, when he starts to do his thing, that's the clincher performance of that song. Like, and unless they're going to have him literally do that in the movie, you don't use that song, because to me, the studio version of that song does not compare to Beautiful Ones in terms of the performance of it. If you'd have did the studio version in the movie, I don't think that would have worked at all of Electric Intercourse. So if you're not going to use the live version, then you can't use that. This other performance is going to be a standout of the movie, whether you like the song or not. Like that's and every time he does that performance through his career, we think back to the movie. It's like, oh, that was such a moment.
It also doesn't fit the narrative, right? Because you can't be like Technicolor climax. Like it's like that's not what we're doing right now in the movie.
Yeah.
And
well,
also
not the version of the movie we ended up.
Yeah, that's right. That's the first draft. But also, I mean, I just checked. So this is wild. Vanity quits for good 2 weeks before this show, mid-July. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Like, it is
Now-
peak drama time around like the Purple Clubhouse at this moment, right? You're
Did
like, we got a movie in progress. We don't know who the lead actress is going to be. Prince is going through it, and we're about to do a show. That's wild.
Did I misread? Was she at the show though?
And she was at the show. Yeah.
Yeah, she was at the show, and I
I've
don't
heard
think
that.
she wasn't invited, right?
But she had no, I don't know if she was or not. She was somebody's guest. I mean, she wouldn't have needed to, she could have just walked in. But I think the like she quit the movie 2 weeks before this. Like, I'm out. Like, that's just unbelievable. And then Beautiful Ones doesn't get written until the next month, until September of '83. So that's just such a like, man, that's wild. Because I
mean,
look at that calendar now, like you were like, what's happening this week? This is what we know. Now I'm like, oh, he's like drinking away his sorrows or whatever he does. Like, you're like, you go through a breakup like that, you're not like, let me get back to work.
Well, this is Prince. I don't know.
I mean,
no,
I mean, I feel like
This is
now,
such-
with retrospect,
the water warming up.
yeah, right. I mean, yeah, but I think with retrospect now, we know this one stuck with him. Right. When
Yeah.
he called Denise by her name in 2016, he never did anything like that. So like, this is a moment in his life that stays with him to the end of his life. Like, we know it because he said it. You know,
Yeah.
She loved me for the artist I was, and I loved her for the artist she was trying to be. And he's talking about this week.
Yeah.
You know,
And so
that's heavy.
one thing, yeah, it is very heavy. And one thing I want to point out, Anil, and one thing that I always point out is that lets you know that Vanity was a very strong woman who knew what she wanted, and she got out because she wanted more for herself. And she was very successful on her own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Last Dragon.
Last Dragon, you got
Classic.
it.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes.
52
yes.
pickup.
I mean, the thing is also like, you know, obviously I love the Vanity records. I appreciate what she did and what she had been, but also, you know, at that time, it's not like she was this incredibly strong singer-songwriter, right? So like,
Of
it's a
course
hard
not.
thing for her to go do. So she had to recognize, like, what is she going to be? Like, she would have been subordinate to Prince going forward. Like, she would be at the whims of him being able to do this stuff. She wasn't going to be like, let me go and pick up a guitar. And so I think her going into acting, all that stuff is just also a reasonable understanding of like, where am I going to be strong and do this? But that's I mean, that's a lot to put into Electric Intercourse. I actually discovered the song really late because I didn't get the bootlegs until whatever it was in the 90s when we all started trading tapes of this stuff. And so heard that scratchy version. And that was always the like, was he say, shut up, Wendy, on the practice, on the rehearsal one? He says something. He calls something out to Wendy, or wake up, Wendy. Maybe that's what he says.
There's some.
Yeah, it's some line, but he calls it. And I mean, again, I'm like, she's 19, she's new in the band. They're playing the song, and he's giving her notes during rehearsal, but it's part of the song to me. So like, it's going between the like, here I am seducing you, and by the way, let me teach my band how to play the song. Like, these things are linked because that's always what I heard. You know, I never heard it as itself.
Yeah. So after Electric Intercourse, we have AUT-O-Matic, which was a phenomenal performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
This is always one of those sleeper hits too. I feel like this is always an underappreciated song. Like, it goes,
it's
so hard.
it's
And
so
it was never a
unappreciated.
single and never anything, and it's just it's such a good track.
Yeah. So when I was watching this yesterday, I'm trying to pull it up. I listened to, let's see, why can I never find anything when I want it? When he's on the floor, he says some interesting stuff. And I was trying to figure out what exactly is he saying. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? So, hold on. Why can't I find
Prince on
anything?
the floor saying something interesting. Yeah, sound about right.
Yeah. Hold on. Why can I not find my notes today? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. So for those of you who have the video for homework, I want you to go to 31 minutes into the show when he's singing Automatic and he's on the floor and he's saying stuff. So this is what I think he says, but I don't think this is right. At least I hope it's not right, but we'll see. So he says, if I had my way, baby, I'd undress you right here. I take those panties down to your ankles, and you know what? I can't say this. So
you want to type it out, and we'll say. You're quoting.
Yeah,
You're quoting. It's not you.
Let me type it out. This is what I hear, and I listened to this probably 20 times yesterday, over and over, to try to figure out, is he really saying this? So here we go. I'm almost there.
You can't even say it. That's funny.
Yeah. So there you go. It's in the chat part.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, he would say something like that.
We don't
Like,
have
you
to
gonna read it? I'll read it.
I'll say it.
Yeah.
Damn it. Research.
Yeah.
I do things to your butt you never thought imaginable. That's right. Hit me one more time.
And that's
So this
the
is
band.
what's going on in your mind. Dude,
This is the man that wrote Wonderful Ass. That's not.
Yeah. So
sure.
I'm talking when he's on the floor, like rewind, like put it on a loop, and you try to figure out what he's saying. So
You put it on
I
a
know
loop?
yeah, because I'm trying to figure out, because I was just like, did he
For
really say
academic
that stuff?
purposes.
Yeah, for academic purposes. Like, what is he saying?
Academically searching through what Prince
Yeah.
do to my body.
Exactly.
All right, sure.
Oh. All right. Okay. So that's just something I want to know. And I'm not even into lyrics, as you guys know. So, maybe C. Lee can help
But
me
suddenly
out.
you've changed your ways.
No, because I'm going like, really? Like, why would
Prince? I don't why you that's lightweight. That's light work for Prince.
Yeah, I mean, have you heard a Prince song? Because he doesn't. That's not,
that's nothing.
That's not nothing. That's
come on, man.
I know. But I was
he has said more scandalous things about his own ass than that. Okay, so that's nothing on stage. Like, many times. Like, that's not.
83 Prince.
Yeah, please.
This is toned down, actually.
Yeah, that's nothing.
But I really want to know what he says. So if someone will do the work and let me know what you hear, maybe
we gotta get the AI to split out the audio and get just the vocals, isolate it, analyze it.
That's a great idea.
Scientific confirmation. He did say "but." The man said "but."
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So anything else?
I thought it was gonna be something scandalous.
I know, right? I was like, well, she can't say it.
I thought we were gonna find out what we never got a video of this concert. It's like, oh, he says something just too dirty for YouTube.
All right.
Tipper Gore in the chat. That's right. We got Tipper Gore scandalized.
They cloned D'Angelo.
They cloned D'Angelo. Oh,
I agree with C. Lee. I think it's metaphorical butt, not literal butt.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you, C. Lee. That makes a lot of sense.
Appreciate the analysis.
Yes.
I want to think you mean literal.
Yeah.
We gotta have some humor in the show. So that was your humor. All right. So after AUTO-matic, we got I Would Die For You, which I think is phenomenal.
God, the more time passes, the more I love this song. Yeah, I feel like I grew up with it, and then you listen to it again with fresh ears, and you're like, God, man, that guy could write.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yes.
And then short like that, and just like,
yeah. Also, like the editing, because he's like not like you draw things out a lot. Then like even the like Purple Rain tour, and you're like you get 20 minutes into Purple Rain, it's like okay, I love the song, but we're 20 minutes in, and this is like short punch. Like at least you wanted more. It's good.
And have you, just to throw it on there, have you heard the version he was doing? Like I think it was the Controversy tour. He did the song a few times, and it's just that
Yes. Yeah. I want to. I wish there's a studio version of that one. Like he's got that kind of rock
Yeah.
edge to it. Yeah.
It's amazing. Amazing song.
And then, so what I find incredible is that at the show, he goes from "I Would Die for You" right into "Baby I'm a Star," like he would on the album,
He knew
like he
it.
would in the movie. He already knew it. It's pretty
Although I
crazy.
wonder if these were going to be sequenced this way on the album without this performance having been like that.
Mhm.
You know, because like it might have been that the sequencing was shaped by this performance because
think
they
it
went
was.
together.
I think it
Mhm.
was.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
That's a good-
that made it
This was
inevitable
cool.
that they would be matched up.
Yep. Yep. And
And Baby I'm a Star was around for a while, right? Isn't there like a 1982 version? Like there's a
There is an
rehearsal
old
or something?
version. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like I'm gonna get killed for this one, but it sounds like a Billy Joel song. There's a Billy Joel song that's got this kind of pumping piano part that was big around then. I don't know Billy Joel's catalog real well, but there's one like Moving Out or something like that. But he's got like this, like you can kind of hear, because Prince would like kind of take from anything.
Mhm.
And I feel like he's like, okay, if they want to hear like upbeat piano jam kind of thing, like I'm going to give them a little bit of that. Somebody will probably in the chat know the name of the song, but there was like a really big Billy Joel song that had that kind of rhythm and pace to it. And then I think he, probably, I don't know if it influenced, but he would have heard it, and you never know like how he pulls things together.
Who sings "I'm Still Standing"?
That's Elton John.
That's
Yeah.
what
But there's a lot. I mean, there's kind of a lot of those things that are like these like AM radio, like they're kind of white dudes doing their version of bluesy stuff, and they had hits from it. And like I think he was definitely listening for like who's got hits, and so I think that might have been in that mix. But
I just hear that gospel bag. It just
yeah,
flipped out on a Prince sort of vibe, but
Yeah.
to me, it's just that okay, this revival time.
yeah, and also the stops and starts, like the not done, like that's all the band cues. Like that's like I really can work this band out that way. Because he wasn't doing that with the prior band. Like even the 1999 tour had a little bit of that, but not like this. Not the, doctor, like the whole cues and everything.
That's the Jesus is the star, and that's Sister Abernathy in the front cutting up.
Yeah. I mean, you see why he gave everybody tambourines, right? Like it's like that's he set the stage for that. Baby I might go on a tangent on this one too. The versions of Baby I'm a Star he does in the last shows in 2016. They harken back to this, but he has a dialogue about where he called out to Dr. Fink and say doctor, and instead he does it's a Ray Charles song too, but he says I don't need no doctor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that context, in that moment, knowing what's going on in his life, I mean, that's heavy. I always think that. And I hear this as like, this is the beginning of that. So this is the first show where we hear it. And the last show we hear it is the last show he does. And he's just in dialogue with 50 years of history with Ray Charles, but also what's going on personal in his life and this show and what he's talking about Q and the band. Like, it's just such a, you never know where those boundaries are, where he's pulling from and what he's paying attention to.
Indeed. So I don't want to talk too much about Baby I'm a Star, because then I'll start talking about James Brown, and then I'll go back into my James Brown rabbit hole. But I've been listening to the Baby I'm a Star on repeat all this year. And it was because of the Body Heat. Well, actually, I started listening to Baby I'm a Star last year because it just puts me in a space of work. That to me is like a work song. The song you can groove on, all day, 24/7. And when I was really down or had no energy, I put on Baby I'm a Star, and it's just like, poof, it's just like, boing. It's crazy. But now that I'm listening to James Brown almost religiously these days, I have a lot more respect for Baby I'm a Star. Because I now understand what he was going for. I mean, so let me rephrase that. So it annoyed, and I said this before, it annoyed me at the time that Prince was giving reverence to James Brown, because I thought Prince should be original. Obviously he's building on the shoulders of James Brown, but I didn't think that he needed to be that overt. But now, actually, since this year, realizing the impact that James Brown must have had on Prince and Michael and everybody else and their mama, you should give James Brown respect. So, after all these years, I finally understand, like why. But at the time, in real time, I was like, one, Prince don't do any covers. Two, Prince is super experimental. He only makes music that nobody else can make. Why is he making this pop, JB derivative music? So I didn't like Baby I'm a Star in real time. I was like, this is too pop. This is not Prince. I don't understand. Does not compute. It's like,
it's so funny because I think we all wanted him to be like in his own thing and not connected to the rest of anybody else's music or anything else in the world. And now I feel like there's so much more meaning in seeing those connections. It's like, oh, he was part of a dialogue. He was in connection to a community, and even the personal part of like his stepdad taking him to that James Brown show that they always talk about, and is he reflecting on that? The same thing with like KCU. Like all these things are like, what's in his life? What's in the moment that evokes him there? Because I had the same thing. I was like, I don't want to. He doesn't listen to anybody. He's not influenced by anybody. He's his own thing. Because that was the story he told us, and we wanted to believe that story, And instead of be like, come on now, come on. And especially like you listen to some of the other artists that are there, and they're like, yeah, you're always listening.
That's it. Both of what you guys just said, interesting points. Almost like, was it us, the audience's fault? I don't know if fault's the word, but to always expect that, no, we don't want to see any connections to anything. But
the mystique.
Doesn't true art, particularly like a legacy, it's important to see the connections of what puts this in context. So we can appreciate when we look back now at those records, we can understand, like you said, now I understand why it's important to know what influenced Prince to do.
I think it's telling he got there with musicology, where that was very explicit. That was the lesson that he was doing. The video musicology is him being James Brown and going to the James Brown show. And, and Macy was on stage with him. Like it's a direct, I think we talked about this at one of the, symposium, but the staging is the same as the 1968 show that James Brown does in Boston after Dr. King is killed, and it's this very explicit, like James, the show that Prince went to as a kid watching James Brown, like he's at the show himself, except now he's James Brown and Macio's next to him and the whole thing's there. And I think we gave him permission as fans to go with him on that by 2004, but it's a long 20 years. Like this point, 21 years prior, he's like, I'm my own thing. I don't listen to anybody. And I think how much of that again was a reaction to 2 weeks after this, or 2.5 weeks after this, he's on stage with James and it doesn't go great. And so you have to, no, I don't have any influences. I don't have any connection to those guys. I'm my own thing. I don't do covers. I don't, you know what I mean? I think that's a real, and then why is it that as soon as he got free by his own words, he's like, I'm going to do cover songs and cover artists that influenced me.
And I'm going to go grab my Yodas and put them out, put them on. I'm going to go grab Larry.
Yes.
Shaka. These my princes.
Yeah.
So I'm putting them on. I don't think nobody say.
Right.
Matter of fact, the OG is hollering at me on some other stuff. I'm listening to OG. I'm following instructions. I'm at this point in life where I'm getting some instructions. I never listen to nobody. So I salute all that. That's what I said.
I feel like if Sly had been in the place to be well at that time, it would have been Sly. And Larry was like the closest he could get, not that he didn't also love, Larry, but I think it was just that like what these people represented to him. And also Shaka would have been around, like talking about Sunset Sound. I mean, these songs, some of these songs are recorded at Sunset Sound. And, Shaka was there at Sunset Sound when he first goes and he's starstruck by her.
Right.
And so, I think it's just definitely that sense of like, when does he admit that he's in dialogue with centuries of tradition and composition and culture? And when is it I came out fully formed and learned from nobody and nothing and I'm my own man? And, and both are true, but it's interesting.
And just to throw in there is because you're on your James, and the fact that Prince was a lover and respect for the culture enough to say, you know what, go on and slide Clyde and them this money so they can take care of their situation, because I grew up listening to that in James records and we owe him. So that's and keep that out the press. I mean, so it just goes to show that he was always connected on stage and in the pocketbooks.
Yes.
Slide OG that money whoop, whoop, he's good. You ain't got to tell nobody about that. And we find out about
Clyde
it later.
Stubblefield, anybody
Yeah.
you want to talk to. Yeah.
Yeah. So after Baby I'm a Star, he performs Little Red Corvette. And like I said previously, the crowd just went wild. You hear their excitement. Again, this isn't anything new. I'm not a big fan of Little Red Corvette, never have been a fan of Little Red
You
Corvette.
just like to hate the popular stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a pop person really. Yeah, so it didn't work.
This is the same thing here. Like you listen to that long version.
Yes, I
And
love the long-
Mayday, and
yes.
it's just like that was another one of those where I'm like, this guy's on some other shit. That's where you take something from being When You Were Mine into being Computer Blue.
Yeah.
When you go from the radio edit of Little Red Corvette, not just the album version, but to the 12-inch version, and you're like, yo, how did he turn a When You Were Mine song into a Computer Blue song? You know, like that was like, man, I'm gonna go there with you wherever you're going. That's crazy.
But the thing is, like, even with that 12-inch, Anil, I used to skip to the part where it started.
The breakdown starts.
Yeah. And I knew,
I believe you.
I knew where to put my needle because I was like, I don't need to listen to that. And then, yeah, that's me. Anything you guys want to say about Little Red Corvette, the performance of the August 3rd show?
No.
I just think about historical context. So it's just about peaking maybe 6 months before.
Mhm.
So this would still be getting a lot of airplay. Songs didn't fade from their airplay that quickly then. So you know, they would have heard Casey Kasem talking about it 3 days before this show. You know, like that's rare. Again, and to be in Minneapolis in that time and have the person who actually created the song be there in front of you in a small club playing a song that's still probably top 40. I think that's got to be as exciting as it gets, right? And that, yeah.
And then also, like at that time, songs lasted longer than they do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they would stay on the charts a long time.
Yes. So after the Little Red Corvette, obviously we have Purple Rain and we have Wendy basically doing, you know, her debut, you know, strumming those chords, being on the stage, being in the spotlight, you know, for that time. And like the intro goes on forever in the actual August 3rd, you know, in terms of those opening chords. And it's pretty incredible watching him actually perform that. Like to me, it was actually moving, and I didn't expect it to be moving because I've heard Purple Rain so many times in my life, but I hadn't watched the show in a very long time. And it was really moving seeing, you know, this really young Prince doing that. But I have a question. There is, unfortunately, you're going to see me go through some of my slides because I have a lot of them. Like I said, there is this quote, and I can't find out where it's from. It's quoted by everybody, but I can't find the origination.
I never believed this thing because I always saw this quote and it didn't sound like, I never heard Prince talk about an albatross in my life. I read every interview, watched every videotape, whatever. It doesn't sound like him. I mean, I'm not saying he couldn't have had this sentiment, especially at the peak of the Purple Rain tour or whatever, but this one always seemed like not real, at least not a way that he felt over time. Because, I mean, we saw him say on stage, on film, decades later, I love playing this song for y'all. I will always love playing this song for you. You know, it makes me happy to play it for you. And he said that a lot.
No, I know. And it's just like, I just wonder where is this coming from? So it must not exist. It must be a hallucination, a hallucinated quote, because I can't find the source. So another homework I wanted to put out there, if you could talk to some of your, you know, scholarly friends and try to find out if this quote really exists, because I can't find it. And you would think, I mean, it's quoted a lot in other articles, but they don't source.
Yeah.
You know, like
I think it's the kind of thing non-fans like to cite about him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's an interesting quote.
Right. Because there's a lot of writers that are like casual. They don't really know his voice or how he thinks. Like he just doesn't talk about his work that way at all, good or bad.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm always like I if I want to hear new music, I listen. I make my own. Like he had these sort of set of tropes he would go to, and at most, if he's talking like I'm glad that people liked that. And this is what we're doing now. I mean, that's always what he said, basically.
Yeah. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't sound like his voice. So
I think it's El DeBarra said he thinks he means the Purple Rain project as a whole, not the song, possibly. But I don't know.
okay. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out if he actually said it.
Right.
I mean, maybe at peak burnout at the end of that tour and trying to get onto Around the World, he might have had that feeling. But it also doesn't sound like the kind of thing he'd say publicly. I think he manicured his public persona so much at that time.
I think we have to see the context of that full statement or whatever that.
Yeah. But I've never found a full context. I've looked too.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't exist as some like oh, here's the article in Rolling Stone and he says that thing or whatever.
Yeah, but everybody, I mean, not everybody, but it's quoted a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially after he passed, they brought it back up, and I was still like, I still don't buy this.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. So there was a break. Actually, maybe I should show those slides first. When
I think with the song performance in this show, he knows what it is. I mean, I think you can see it on his face, and you can see the seriousness with which he delivers it. He's like, this is about to be it. Like, and he just like, and you talk to people that write songs, and they say, I knew I had a hit as soon as I wrote it or whatever. I feel like there's that gravity to it. Like, it's not like even Electric Intercourse in there where he's like killing it, great performance, but it's not the same as like, I'm about to make history here. I feel like that, and I might be reading that in retroactively, but the thing I think about too is the editing he does, because he's got the little, the guitar part, and he does it a lot, right? But then the edit, he takes like a minute of that out because he's like, okay, too much. It's good, but it's too much, and like that's a part of him we never see in public very often. Is to like he had that good ear and kind of sort of pare it down to just the part that's going to really affect you. And I mean, to think of like an edit of a song still being 8 minutes long, it's like
that's crazy.
Who does that?
Yeah,
who does that?
No, nobody does that. So we're gonna kind of talk about. Anil already brought this up, that it was actually a performance, to raise funds for the Minnesota Dance Theater. And Anil said, the tickets were $25, which was actually expensive back then. So here's the ticket, and let me find my mouse. These were the shirts that were sold there. So you see the Minnesota Dance Theater. That's the back on the left. And
where do we get one of those?
I don't know.
I don't think I got the arms for it, but come on, look at that.
I love it. I also love that it still has like the 1999 Prince logo on it.
That was the current one.
That was the current one. But it's just that I identify August 3rd so much with Purple Rain that it's just so, it's like a transition period, just like the Sign of the Times New Year's Eve show. Like it was like in between Sign of the Times, Love Sexy Hair, and kind of like you could see that transition happening. And then I love these. I'm a huge fan of contact sheets. Just for some context, I have an MFA in photography, so I'm a bit of a photography nerd. And so Laos, is it Houghton? How do you pronounce it?
Lois Holton.
Holton, thank you.
Yeah.
Holton. Lois Holton, who was the founder and artistic director of the Minnesota Dance Theater, MDT. And this photo was taken by David Brewster, who was on staff at the Star Tribune. And I love these series of photos. And I love this one in particular just because of how endearing.
Yeah, that is sweet.
Isn't it so sweet?
And you also realize how young he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's still like, now I'm like, that's a kid.
Yeah, definitely. And what I loved was that she only said, that one line of, him, like being a king. And because normally at a benefit like this, they would actually have this really long speech about, thinking this, thinking that. And then I read somewhere actually that someone told her that she shouldn't speak at all. She should just go out and maybe hug. So I did like that she did that one line. I was like, that is very just like gracious. And Um, and then we go into DMSR, which
The
was
thing I'll say about Lois Holton too. So she created Minnesota Dance Theater, but they also did the school dance education for public schools in Minneapolis at the time. And she did some of those classes herself. I don't know if she actually taught at Central, but people affiliated with MDT were at Central and were doing the dance classes. So like, and Minneapolis is a small town. So Prince would have known, oh, when we took those dance classes when I was in, the 8th grade or whatever, like this was them. That's what MDT was known for. So I think that context of it being really, really community based. And yes, he's got it. We don't have a Prince of Minneapolis, we have a king. And I think again, like any other context, I think he would have hated that. But like this was sincere and real and people from his town and he knew what it was. And so I think he was feeling like, this is okay because it's her. But I just love that connection to community. A thing I'd shared a while back was a lot of people probably saw the video of the Minneapolis teacher strike and all the educators organizing, and they were on the steps listening. They were singing along to Purple Rain, right, as part of their rally. And the thing I shared with them was like, yeah, and this song was recorded at a benefit for educators who worked in public schools in Minneapolis. And to understand like that is that full cycle. And then the video we've all seen of Prince as a 11-year-old talking about how the striking teachers deserve to be paid because they're working so hard. I think that connection into the genesis moment of the song is also a tribute to, like, in a very real way, like public school education, kids having access to learning about the arts, which is how, which I think is as formative to the Minneapolis sound as anything you could point to. These kids could get together and have a band room. You always hear Morris talking about, we were in the band room and I was playing the drums and we met and all that kind of stuff. That just feels so connected. So I just think that like Lois Holton is such a key part of this story because it's like, who would you get out there and do this for? Now, they were going to do the show regardless. They were going to record the songs regardless. They were going to get the recording truck and do whatever. But that it is that moment, I think there's just such a resonance there. And I think also in terms of legacy, I always think about how do you make him relevant to kids and young people and whatever, and sort of say is directly tied. Like you have all these different threads that tie him through the current like rising labor movement and taking care of educators, which couldn't be more current when, teachers are under attack, libraries are under attack, and that's stuff that he loved.
Yes, and you can tell again that there's a connection there because just the photos they just show it, and it's sincere. You can see it on his face, and it's really special to see. What I find odd about, well, actually, a lot of the photos from this performance is the hands that are coming from below the stage. So I don't know, you guys can see that soul hand, like either someone wants to join into that hug or they want to hold on to Prince or Lois or one of them. It's a really interesting photo. And and then here's some more photos. There are actually a lot of contact sheets on Getty Images that the Star Tribune have put up. And again, the photographer is David Brewster. I like this contact sheet in particular, just because I would imagine the third and fourth row is maybe during like Computer Blue or something, but he looks really intense. So there was an article, obviously, in the Star Tribune that John Bream wrote, and you can see some, that I don't think I showed that picture, but you can see that photo. And let me see if I can read part of it. What's really interesting in the John Bream article, it says that it was 1,100 people, but obviously that could be wrong. And it says at $25 per crowded First Avenue for the benefit. It was an evening of contrast, beginning with the dancers performing works by such as Sir Frederick Ashton, and I can't see the other name, but they actually perform a song. The dance company performed a song to Prince's DMSR before Prince came on, which I thought was really interesting that Prince still did an encore with DMSR despite the dance company also performing to DMSR during the same day. Now, what's interesting about this article, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse and you can't, in the bottom left-hand corner,
talks about the time.
that talks about the time. Yes. So I actually found this article more interesting about this little blurb about the time than I did about the August 3rd show. So I'm going to
They
read.
talk about Lewis and Jam in this article. I always remember that. I was like, who's Lewis and Jam? That's I never heard of them.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to read it. So it says, although there has been no official announcement, the time has apparently been trimmed to just singer Morris Day and guitarist Jesse Johnson. Bassist Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, Nee Harris, have departed from the Twin Cities hit-making R&B band known for such songs as Cool and The Walk. Lewis and Jam, it sounds so funny.
That's not right.
Yeah, Lewis and Jam have been writing and producing songs for such nationally known soul artists as Gladys Knight and the Pips, the SOS Band, and Climax. And they have decided to move to Los Angeles to further their behind-the-scenes work. No word yet on the plans for former Time keyboardist Monte Moore or drummer Jelly Bean Johnson. So it's a lot in this little clip here from.
It's interesting that the time drama was that big a part of the story.
Yeah. So wanted to read that, and then here's another little clip. And the only reason why I wanted to show this clip because it's a short one, and this was posted in the Tennessean in Nashville, is the last sentence, which says the new album will be a soundtrack for a still untitled film Prince wrote a treatment for and will star in with Vanity 6 and The Time. So, this is a point where, again, we didn't have any social media. People didn't know what was going on. And, I guess like right now, everybody thought, that maybe wasn't in Minneapolis, that, Vanity and Vanity 6 would be in the.
This article does not mention Purple Rain. It's one of the songs that's premiered.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that cool?
That is pretty cool.
Because literally, if you describe this show to anybody at any point since then, right? And they're like, yeah, and something else.
Yeah, that is wow. So Computer Blue, and I love that Computer Blue comes first.
Let's Get Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's
be
the remix.
I Would Die For You and Electric Intercourse. There you go.
And nothing else.
There you go.
It's like no Baby I'm a Star and no Purple Rain. And man, you got hits when they can leave those out.
Pure organic, like this is what hit that person who wrote this.
Yeah.
And it also means that's probably what his PR sent out. That was the list, right? Because they weren't at the show. Tennessee's not at the show.
I see.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, it does say UPI.
Yeah, that's right. So I wonder who is the UPI reporter that's at this show. That's good catch, Kim. That's the sort of question. Is like, what went out on the wire? We should be able to find that. We'll do that.
Yeah. And let's see. Okay, so this is one of my. I mean, we've seen this photo so many times, but I can never tire.
It's an all-timer. Yeah.
The side eye. It looks like to me. It's like I got this. Every time I see this, and I love. I'm assuming Louis and Vaughn did the his outfit. I love this outfit because it's still reminiscent of Controversy and Dirty Mind, like with the spikes on the shoulder, and
it's transitioning into the Purple Rain style, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. And then I just love his hair. It's still like I loved his Controversy hair.
He sweated it out. You could tell he's working.
Yeah. I just loved it. And again, this is one of my hand photos that I love. I don't know who the photographer is. If somebody knows, please let me know. I think this is a wonderful photo.
What song is this, though? I always see this photo, and I'm like, what's the song he's saying one in? Because they're all doing it in the crowd, too.
Yeah. I Would Die For You. I think it's I Would Die For You, isn't it? Like
So they were doing it the first time they heard the song? That's wild, right? Like, think about it. You go to a show, you never heard the song before, and now you're not only singing along, but you're doing the choreography, too.
I think this is from I Would Die For You. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if I
have to go frame by frame through the whole
show.
Then.
Yeah, that's a great shot. And again, here's some more contact sheets, and you can see Wendy and Prince here. Love these shots.
And we got to shout out. Wendy is 19 years old.
Yeah. Yes.
That's crazy.
And she'd never played at a show like in front of a crowd before.
That's great. You can imagine, just real quick, if there was a Wendy today that was playing like that, be dominant. I mean, that would be they would boost that to the top off the top.
Well,
Like,
or would they give
white
her a
girl that
shot?
was
Or
a
would they give her a shot?
teenager.
Because they'd be like, we don't want you to play, we want you to dance, or we want you to,
Well, I'm just saying the fact that she could play and
Yeah,
she was playing soul funk, like,
yeah,
and she was a white girl.
yeah.
Please, that would
Oh,
be
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
To the
But I mean,
front.
it's also like pretty much every member of the revolution. I think you could go and say, I mean, except maybe maybe Bobby, but like I think everybody else, you could be like, you could go and do that, and that would be a whole act now. But yeah,
Yeah.
Wendy, I
Her
mean, she
being
had that
that
charisma.
young.
Like she had the charisma and the star power, and again, love Dez, but like he wasn't trying to be that. But like she could be a front next to him, and I think that's a tough slot.
They would have made her the Eminem of Minneapolis. She would have been the Eminem of
I mean,
R&B.
wasn't that? I mean,
You
they
know what?
tried to
We
do
gotta go away
that.
from
Margie
that.
Cox, like all these. I mean, I think they did try to do that. They did try to make the like, who's going to be the white face of Minneapolis funk a bunch of times. I
If
mean,
it
I think
would
Prince
work,
was like kind of
Prince
thinking
would
about
have
that
been
for
the
St.
Dr.
Paul.
Dre. He would have been the Dr. Dre. He did the music and put her out, and they would have made her the top star of the game. Like,
Yeah.
she got heat.
I'm-
What was this?
But I mean, is the family not that?
Well, I
If
think
they'd
I'm
hit.
saying with Wendy though, as a 19-year-old white girl that can play
But
like
Susanna looks exactly like Wendy. It wasn't much older.
right, but she wasn't
Family's
playing.
next
That's
year.
what I'm saying. Could play guitar and could do all
Yeah,
that stuff.
that's true. That's true.
That would be on some other stuff.
But I do think there's an aspect of him that was like, well, when you talked about let's get that Duran Duran money and let's get, all that kind of stuff. I think there is a little bit of him that's like, yeah, let's go. And, and we know like there was an aspect of him including like such visible white artists in his act that was like, yeah, they respected their talent, but also he knew it was going to open the door.
And Wendy could write. They could
Yeah.
produce. That's
Yeah.
what so they
Yeah.
was awesome. Mother. They
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Let's not
Yeah.
act like it wasn't producing, making up some good stuff.
Yeah, no, they did a lot. They did a lot of the work.
So, Anil, the answer is AUTO-matic. It's an AUTO-matic.
All right. I love it.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I love doing these book clubs and our Saturday salons, because I get corrected all the time because we crowdsource and make sure everything
I'm
is
gonna get the
correct.
move. I gotta get.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to read this, but Zach, actually, I wanted to read a little bit, but maybe not. Maybe I'll read it next week. So Zach actually writes 3 times about Purple Rain, and this is actually Zach Hoskins on the DMSR, Dance Music Sex for Men's blog. And I'm going to read just one quote from it, which was, let's see if I can find it. Of course I can't find it, so I'm not going to read that. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next one for the sake of time. We already talked about that. And okay, so we all should know, but again, Michael wants us to talk to the newbies. In case you don't know, the studio version of Electric Intercourse was finally released on the 2017 Purple Rain Deluxe. I was ecstatic to get the studio version. And it was originally recorded, we talked about this back in January, on January 14th, 1983. It was a basic tracking of Electric Intercourse. And then I don't know if anybody has heard this cover. It's pretty incredible cover by Hero. Yeah. And they actually recorded it as a demo in 2012, and they put it up on their SoundCloud, I think when Prince passed. And they're actually, this was before, Purple Rain Deluxe. They recorded this, so they were only going by the live version.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a nerd or is this
Nero?
Nero.
okay,
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing too. I was like, what?
No, it's Nero. Yeah, but it's a really good version. And then just put this in context. This is a 2012 demo when Prince was still alive. They also had, this August 3rd show, I'm sure. And of all the songs you could cover, you can tell that these people knew their Prince by covering it, and they do a great job. So Everybody should know that if you click on this link, it'll go directly to the YouTube video. It's also in our accompanying playlist, also on YouTube. And again, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, on the website for our book club, you can let me see if I can find it here. That's our book club website where you can find a schedule, what we're reading every week. And then the slideshow is on the home page. And then you can see the slides from this week, and you can click on most of the images and it'll take you somewhere. And this will take you to that on SoundCloud. And we're not going to talk about that. We're already talking about that. I wanted to talk about, Wendy's beautiful purple Rickenbacker. And I also wanted to give a shout out to one of my other favorite websites, Guitar Cloud, which goes into a lot of detail about Prince's gear. And if you read this, because I didn't even know this, that originally it's purple, Wendy's playing the purple Rickenbacker, but I think it was originally black and it was actually painted purple or something like that. Anil, do you know that or no? But I
don't know definitively. I was just trying to remember. I feel like that's the story. Wendy's talked about it because she's talked about how much she misses that guitar.
Yeah.
I don't remember offhand.
Yeah. And then but this got stolen, right? After the Purple Rain tour or something. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it was it might've been the Parade tour, but yeah, she's talked about that's like, she put up a prize, if anybody finds it, she's gonna, no questions asked, she'll pay you for it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful guitar. It really is. And then Brown Mark also had a purple Fender Jazz, and so it was just just looking at that show last night. Okay, Wendy has her purple Rickenbacker. They are. Prince is already in Purple Rain mode, even though. I don't know, when he decided that the movie was going to be called Purple Rain. I don't know if that had been decided by this point, because based on Dwayne's book, it sounds like Albert Magnoli came up to Prince after the show, and Prince was and said this is the song, Purple Rain, for the film. And Prince says, should we call the movie Purple Rain, or can we call the movie Purple Rain, or something like that? Yeah. So I don't even think that.
I think everybody agrees it was after they heard it that they changed the name. So the purple theme comes in, and they've got purple costumes and instruments and everything before that's even the name of the record.
Yeah. And so it's just crazy though, their gear was already purple, so it was just they were already in the mode. And then also what was really weird is that there was no white cloud, right? And, at the show, because, obviously we're still in transition mode. And, but just that
might not have even been in the movie yet at that point. You know what I mean? That story point might have been something added later.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And this was my love. So I'm such a hater. So I hated the white cloud when it first came out. I was like, where is my bad cat?
Yes.
Because I was just so used to Prince, with the cheetah strap and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, does not compute. Okay. That's just me and my problems. All right. So
real quick, can y'all tell me real quick? And wasn't the cloud guitar, wasn't that something that Andre had back in the day?
He had a bass. He had a cloud bass.
Version
and then they made the guitar because he liked the style of the bass.
Yeah. Yeah, the bass is beautiful. But it was just super weird because I just identified Prince with this particular. I couldn't let go.
Did they ever say why he chose to put that in the movie? Was there?
I think it's just to emphasize she's reciprocating by helping his artistry, he's helping hers.
I mean, but why they chose that design?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I never heard anything about. Yeah,
I'm very curious. Since looking at, like I said, I wonder if Andre oh, okay.
I would bet he probably was already interested in that iconography of that thing, and then they were like, "We need to give her something to do, so let's use the guitar he got." Because I do recall the guitar was made separate from the movie, it wasn't made for the movie.
I was gonna say, I wonder if that was a you took what you give type of Petty Prince.
I mean,
Exactly.
he was not above that,
Players.
especially at that time.
Yeah. Oh, you want to play games? But anyway, who knows?
Yep. And yeah, I've always heard this too. The chats go by so fast I can't catch them. That his sister said orange was his favorite color.
She said that posthumously. I feel like that's a very dubious claim. It's another one of those like trying to get some press kind of things, because like her reference was because he wore some peach color at the Super Bowl or something, and it's like, yeah, he wore peach a lot, but like he didn't resist being branded as purple for sure.
Yeah, most def. And so another thing that I love about the Princess Guitar Rig website is that they try to figure out, or in some cases have accurate information depending on what they can see or not, the actual guitar pedals and amps and things of that nature. So again, if you click on any of these images, it'll take you to that site and you can learn more about some of the other setups, like for and then also thank you for that, Michael.
I felt that one.
Oh yeah. And then, you know, we have the wonderful Yamaha CP80, which he performs with. And again, I just wanted to give a shout out to it just because of that brilliant performance of Electric Intercourse. You know, we just just loved, you know, that. All right. So
I was just watching a video of Jimmy Jam talking about getting his first CP80, and he's playing it, and he's talking about writing Tender Love on it. So it's like they must have been like, this is the hotness now. This is what we're gonna get because we got some money.
yeah, Tender Love was such a great song. All right. So this is my favorite part of the show. Just because
The pimp and the imp.
It's funny because my first thought seeing this photo is it's that Smooth Criminal hat.
Hilarious.
I did not make that connection, but that's an interesting connection. What really stands out for me is the cross. Because, you know, for a long time, like that was his symbol, you know, like he always had a crucifix on. And then also obviously the buttons, and you can't see his mankini, but you know, if you've seen the video, you know about his little mankini and his lap warmers and all of that.
Or if you've seen Borat, it's the same suit that Borat wears. It's, you know, except Prince can pull it off.
Yes, yes.
This is the dirty mind pimp. You know, it's like I'm still dirty mind, I'm still that kid, but I'm player now. You know, we got money, and I'm, you know, he's like, I'm not in the show. Everything you see, but I'm still that dude. Like, I'm out still out here. What time is it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like don't forget. Yeah. Jamie Starr shows up.
Yeah, like don't get it twisted now.
Yeah, Jamie Starr did show up. There's a random question in the chat that I want to answer. So Prince shot the Second Coming project during the controversy shows. Like it was supposed to be, in my opinion, it's a precursor to Purple Rain in terms of having like narrative bits based around concert footage. It would have been, I guess, more akin to Sign of the Times, the film. But yeah, that's when it was filmed during the controversy tour.
More than a year prior to this, almost 2 years prior to this.
Yeah.
Let me throw it in the air for whenever one of the next celebrations y'all do. What you do, go on and show that, and have that be one of the things that
Second Coming.
Buy a ticket. We're gonna show the Second Coming. It's only at the Celebrate. That's what y'all need to do.
Everything I've heard about the Second Coming, and I only seen segments of it or whatever, is like real graffiti bridge vibes of like, there's stuff in there, it's good, but it's not a joy to watch the whole way through, is what I've heard. But it's fun. I mean, I think historically it's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, indeed. And then let's see what I got after this. So actually Susanna put this up for auction. This is the actual jacket that he wore.
How much did that go for?
Crazy.
And let me see. Actually, I don't know if it's sold. Let me switch my
59.
This is
80 to 120,000.
Lower.
I don't know.
An important early stage costume.
Yeah.
I guess you can't just be like, here's his jacket.
Yes. And they say most likely designed by Louis and Vaughn.
Can you imagine having that in a case in your living room? Like, hey, player, pour out a little something, pour a little liquor. Yo, what is that? Yo, man, this is Prince. This is one of his jackets, homie, from one of his classes.
That's not casual. Like when folks come over and they see that, they're like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
you have $100,000 Prince jacket." It's
Yeah,
like, that's
pour
not.
out a little, like, give it up.
That's lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
You got to get one of them little mannequins and everything and put it on there. Like you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
just hang this on a hanger. You know what I mean? You got to really.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so this is actually in another book that everybody should have. Let me go full screen because this is really important.
I love source documents. I love it.
First Avenue by Chris R. I don't want to bastardize his name. It's a really great book about the history of First Avenue.
Raymond Schneider.
Thank you.
Okay.
And so in this book, they actually have this for this particular performance, and I will read it to you guys. Let me make sure go in case you can't see it because it's pretty tiny. So it says the numbers on the Minnesota Dance Theater benefit with Prince on Wednesday, August 3rd, 1983. Paid admissions, 1,200 pre-sale tickets at $25 per ticket, $30,000. 8 tickets at $3 at the door.
After concert. People just trying to come into the venue after the show?
I don't know.
You sell tickets. Where do they do that at?
I don't know. That was weird. And so it says 1,208 total paid admissions for $30,000 and $30,024. And now complimentary tickets and promotional guest lists, 252 complimentary tickets returned out of 300 distributed.
There's 50 people that got free tickets at that show and didn't go. Can you imagine?
Yes.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild?
Work in the morning.
Yeah.
Skinny mom.
There was a new episode of MASH on. I'm gonna
but
stay home.
Skip a plan.
But
please, I gotta go to work.
The way that I'm reading it though, it sounds like only 48 people showed up out of the 300.
No, 252 return. Oh wait, is that right?
It says 252 complimentary tickets returned out of 300 distributed.
I was reading that as that's who showed up. No, because they got 29 on Prince. That would be wild if most of the free tickets weren't used.
I think there weren't. It was a Wednesday night. Yeah, it says returned.
Give me one of them tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
In a DeLorean.
It was like, Prince, what are you gonna do? Show his ass? I gotta go to work.
You know what though? In Minnesota, they're probably like, "Oh, he's sold out. He's on MTV now. We liked him when he was real, right?" There's gonna be people. No, I want like him when I was my thing.
Yes.
Big now.
But I think Blade Brown is correct. It's Prince. I'll see him next month.
Yeah, man, that's wild.
Well, when was this announced again? I'm sorry, in terms of when the show happened, because there's no internet back then, so it's
Kim reads it the same way I do. It came back to the box office. I think that's right. I think 252 tickets were used, 48 were not used.
Okay, are you sure? Because it says out of 300 distributed.
Yeah, returns is usually the box office returns. Right?
Okay, all right. Okay,
yeah,
all right. So that I think you and Kim know what you're talking about. So I will go with you guys. And then 15.
There's also emotionally can't accept that. That would be the case.
Yes, indeed. And so we got 15 club employees on guest list, 22 Prince front door guest list, 29 Prince back door guest list.
Yeah, he sang about that in Automatic.
14 Alan Fingerhut. Do we know who Alan Fingerhut is?
Michael's going with me on that one.
I didn't get that one. I'm slow.
You don't need to. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Alan Fingerhut was a music promoter, right? I feel like that's.
Let's find out who Alan Fingerhut was. So he had 14 on the guest list. We also had 18 club employee guests on guest list.
The man who brought you First Avenue. That's Alan Fingerhut.
Okay.
Yeah. He owned the place at the time. I think he owned it, sold it, bought it again, managed it. Like he did it. He was all over it. But he's the First Avenue guy.
And then it says 4 Minnesota Dance Theater guests. That's actually surprising that there are only 4 Minnesota Dance Theater guests.
That's Lois and like Lois's friend. It's not a
Yeah.
lot of folks.
No, not at all. And then 4 media guests on guest lists. And
Also, at this time, was First Avenue, that was still, was it considered a rock
Yeah.
type of place?
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, definitely.
So people on
Because they
North
had
Side on the First Avenue, like yeah, let's go hang out.
they had the depot. And I think most of the black artists were in the depot, which like not coincidentally is like around the corner and smaller venue and whatever. But that's I think what the breakdown was. Talking to folks who lived there then. And then this was Sam's and then became First Avenue. And Depot used to be, was it 7th Avenue entry, whatever. Which is
Was there
literally
a thing? I feel like I've talked about this. Was there a thing like, yeah, we didn't go to First, not like I was there. When I say we, like,
yeah,
that ain't even no place we would consider going no way.
Yeah, Andres told me
But they
that. He's
didn't
like,
wanna-
we didn't see any
really
shows
wanna
there
come
because
in
nobody
like
that we
that.
liked played there.
But was there
Yeah.
a thing like they didn't really want us coming in? You know, just like a vibe, like.
I mean, I don't think we like. Of course there was. I mean, in that era, at that time, there, like, of course there was. But Andre said, like, he's like, we never went to shows there. You weren't trying to like get over there because your audience wasn't there.
Right.
Like that was a pretty, like that was for them.
Yeah. So I have a couple of articles that you should read if you haven't. One is from The Current, which is on this day in 1983. Prince played Purple Rain for the first time. Again, if you click on it to go there. And then I also have an article by Anil Dash. I know
Hey, that's me.
so you can go and look at this one as well. So we're all out of order in my deck, but I actually want to read a little bit out of the First Avenue book about the August 3rd show, because there's something in it that Dwayne doesn't talk about in his book. And I read it the first time I bought this book, but I had forgotten about it until I read it again. So I'm actually on page, if anybody has the book, I'm going to read one paragraph, and then I'm going to read another paragraph on another page. So on page 100, I'm going to read this. It says, the full concert was videotaped by First Avenue's own in-house production company, AVE or Avenue Productions, which used 3 cameras to capture the concert as a rough sketch for the movie's performance scenes. Decades later, a well-informed bootlegger of that video posted the full 11-minute rendition of Purple Rain online with annotated factoids and captions, pinpointing exactly where certain parts of the song were cut out for the album. The annotator even highlighted the moment an audience member let out a loud "ow" that can be heard faintly on the album version. Throughout the full concert video, a bootleg version of which also exists, you can see a lot of the same stage tricks, dance steps, and rock star movement that will later appear in the movie. Everything from the hand gestures and "I Would Die for You" to the kiss Prince plants on guitarist Wendy Melvoin's cheek just before Purple Rain crescendos into its glorious finale. Now, Anil, do you know anything about this annotated video that they're talking about? Because I had never seen
Yeah, there was
that.
a Facebook video that went around. It actually, I think it was made before he passed, but then got another sort of wave after he passed. And it was a European fan had made it. I apologize because I don't remember. I believe it was somebody in France, but people kept sending it to me because I'd written that piece that you linked to, and and I guess he cited it in that or quoted from it or something. You know, it's good. I mean, I think it sort of talks through all the stuff we sort of talked through. For me, it came right after, like it got shared with me a lot right after Prince passed. So I was like, I don't want to see this right now. So I probably didn't give it sort of fair shake, but you know, it seemed reasonably well done, but it had, I feel like millions of views. Like, I think it was one of the big things that made the rounds on social in those days. I just don't use Facebook a lot, but that was where it was. And it wasn't on YouTube, and it wasn't on, because YouTube was still takedown land at that time, you know, through the estate. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not that much better, but it was really, they were still under the current legal regime of Prince being like, no, you know, no tolerance. Anyway, so yeah, I think it just incorporated a lot of these sort of the things that anybody who's talked about this show says about the show, kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, the stuff that, especially that Susan Rogers has shared. I think she had a lot of shaping the narrative because she was the only person in the camp that talked about any of it for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was sort of it.
Sure. So I'm going to read a couple paragraphs that are really important to me. So from this book on page 103. Okay. Bobby Z looks back on that night as the highest of high points in the room. When I hear the record, I could put myself back into that moment on that stage, that smell and that heat and that summer, that whole journey of what First Avenue is about, Bobby said. That was just, you know, the band clicking with the band leader, the most incredible band leader. We know that now. History tells us that the greatest coach, general, band leader, everything you wanted, he had. And he hits those guitar solos in Purple Rain. They were real and they're captured for real. Nobody ever did anything like that before. So when you're behind that, you're inspired to rise up to a kind of a superhuman level that only Prince can give you because he's the closest thing to supernatural I've ever seen. I love that quote from Bobby Z. And I'm
Yeah,
going to go
there's
on.
just so much love there. Which
It's
you
so
know,
much love.
that's the thing, is like that comes through is really special.
Yeah, yeah. And it also just communicates how special Prince was to Bobby Z, but how special he is to us, you know, because I see that, you know, through his leadership, through, you know, all of his bands, including the Revolution. Okay, on a more down-to-earth level, the drummer, Bobby Z, also came close to heat exhaustion that night. It finally subsided when he got out of the club to visit his brother David Z in the mobile recording studio after the set ended. I remember opening the door of the truck and feeling the air conditioning, Bobby said with a laugh, recalling being a little jealous of his brother's cozy setup and feeling proud when David looked at him and declared, "You guys were great." David noted another reason to envy his recording job inside the truck, meeting Sheila E. So Sheila E.
Truck. Sheila was in the air
Sheila-
conditioning.
Yes.
You know, Donald.
Prince brought her into the truck and said, "Can she sit in here with you?" He recalled. This is David Z. David also remembered that during and after the concert, everyone in the truck was just cheering, saying how great it all sounded. Now, this next paragraph is in Dwayne's book. Well, the quote that they're going to talk about, but we probably won't be able to read as much as I had wanted, if at all, in Dwayne's book, because there's a lot in there. So I'm going to read this here. While he was known to tirelessly comb over recordings late into the night, Prince apparently rested on his laurels after this one. I don't know about that, but never mind.
Maybe they just mean he went to bed that night, which he didn't usually do.
Yeah, yeah. As David remembered, I walked out of the truck and Prince pulled up in his black BMW, rolled down the window and said, "How'd it go?" I went, "It sounded great." And just then a girl stepped off the curb with a trench coat and opened it up and she was naked underneath. Prince goes, "No, don't do that." And he rolled up his window and drove away. So that was really our conversation after the concert. He didn't listen back that night. Maybe he knew he nailed it.
Well, there's a lot there. But
I know, exactly. It's a lot there.
can I just say real quick, that whole thing with the young lady that approaches him like that, to me, that is so telling to the effect of Prince that he had on certain fans at that point. Like they would feel beholden or bold enough, comfortable enough to come to some place outside their house, butt ass naked, with a trench coat, because that's where he was, and then wait for him after a show outside in Minneapolis.
The logistics, the supply chain effort, because or at the very best case, you were going to a public restroom at a nightclub to take off everything under your trench coat. That's the best case scenario. That is a lifestyle decision.
And what was the mindset for the young lady? Like,
how is this about to go?
Show him, and he's gonna take me, or I'm offering my. Like, that's some wild stuff. Like,
where we had, and also he lived.
It was a dude and it was a female. It would have got hauled up out of there. But I wonder if Prince. My point is, I wonder if Prince in that moment was like, "Whoa, this." I wonder if he just had a thing. I'm pushing the line too hard. Like I didn't realize
things are changing. Yeah.
they're willing to do this. Like, and he's like, whoa. Like you might think I was gonna tell you,
But
to
also
get in
that probably
car,
that
but
was
I'm not.
probably not the first time that he'd encountered
Sure.
this, and you don't yet have. I mean, because I think part of what he goes into with by the time Sign of Times, whatever, is like you see, as people are talking about in the comments, like the AIDS panic comes, all this kind of stuff. People weren't feeling that yet.
Right.
People are like, "Oh, I'm straight. Maybe it won't get me. I'm in the Midwest, and maybe this doesn't apply to me or whatever." So like you're still having a very different mindset, about how you're thinking about those things, and I think he feels that very acutely because I can't imagine that was the first time somebody came up to him and was like, "I got nothing on under here," whatever, because he had that charisma, he had that star power. He was already on MTV. He already whatever.
Well, he just did a show where he ends the show where he's stripped down. Like I'm ready to get it popping.
Exactly right. So like, what else are you going to take away from the guy who's on stage in his underwear? They're like, let me one up him, right? And so I think, I think he knew he was pushing those buttons, but definitely, I think why he has such a strong pushback by the end of the Purple Rain tour is like he didn't want to be like that Beatlemania. You're ripping my hair out and tearing your clothes off, throwing your drawers on stage, whatever. I think that's a real reckoning, and why he had that ambivalence about
it. And that lady, that's y'all's grandma right now.
That's right. Yeah.
These older princesses you see on, that's them back then. They was getting, that's how they got down. They was going to these shows.
That's right. That woman is 61 years old right now, and she's telling her grandbabies about like, do you remember Prince?
And she's probably also saying, you need to turn off that Megan and all that. Well, grandma, y'all was out there naked, offering yourself to this brother.
Yeah.
In the snow.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's August and it's hot. Because I'm like, it's always cold in Minnesota. And I'm like, no, it is hot. Literally everything I've ever read about that night, people are like, it was hot. It was just hot.
I need the.
So maybe she's just cooling off. You don't know.
I need the Core 4. I put in a request. I need the Core 4. Which y'all call it now? My bad.
We call it For You, FOUR, For You. The For You.
I'm just calling it the Core. I need the Core 4 breakdown on that mentality and that part of the Prince where the women was coming ready. Because I need the educational.
Not that complicated. It's like he's this attractive, talented person.
I need the breakdown.
And he just told me what he was going to do to my butt.
Lord.
It goes full circle. Okay, I'm gonna put up another slide. So I didn't realize. So the hardcover of this book came out in 2017. Only last night did I find out just by chance that the paperback came out in 2022 and it's revised and updated. So I wanted to ask if anyone had the revised and updated. And from what I can tell, it's just like talking about. Like wherever this book starts, it kind of fills in between now and then. And I don't think there's any additional Prince information, but if anyone has this book, please let me know. So I need to figure out if I need to get it or not. And then someone in the chat, I want to thank you for letting me know. I wish I could find you. I apologize, I can't find your chat because there's so many going right now. That Alan Fingerhut is on page 13. If you want to find out more about Alan Fingerhut, and I will read just one or two sentences because of time. So Alan Fingerhut's crash course in the rock and roll business came on April 3rd, 1970. Before I was born, I had the ripe but emboldened age of 26. Nearly 5 decades later, the story almost seems scripted for dramatic or comedic effect. The Depot's opening night, because it was, first it was the Greyhound. Let me show this real quick, actually. For those of you who might not know, First Avenue started out being a Greyhound station.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it started out, and then, it was like Sam's, and it might have been something else before it was Sam's. I don't know my first history. I need to do some more reading of this book, obviously. And the reason why I didn't know that, Alan Fingerhut is who he was, because I just went direct to the Prince sections and just read those over and over again, because that's what I do. But he says the Depot's opening night headliner, Joe Cocker, had a freakishly large entourage of 40-some people that needed to be taken care of, including future stars Leon Russell, Rita Coolidge, and Bobby Keys, several children, and a dog. Then someone in Cocker's management threatened that their star wouldn't play that night's second set unless the singer got paid more. Bands were already lined up around the block, and when Cocker did finally go on again, the most basic mistake a bar owner can make added to Fingerhut's woes: the club ran out of booze. So this is a really great book that I actually need to read more in depth. And obviously, they have like a lot of flyers. I don't know if you guys can, in the book, from First Avenue and things of that nature. So it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend that you get it. How are we doing on time?
By any chance? I'm just curious.
They went through a lot of drama. I think now they have another local owner again, but there had been a lot of turmoil, and they were like maybe going to close and all that. And it was even before COVID and all that.
Oh.
It was a whole. I mean, venues are hard, and they never make money.
In another world, I saw Prince trying to buy that just to.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine when he was doing Glam Slam, he had to have thought about it.
Yeah, I always wonder why he didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expensive and it doesn't make a lot of money, and he can't control it. Right? People would get mad if he would have renamed it from First Avenue to Glam Slam.
Yeah, that's true.
Part 2.
Right, exactly. But it also would have been, I feel like it would have become a theme park at that point. Like, while Prince was still like on top of the, because like he starts working on Glam Slams and that stuff when he's still charting and has hits and all that. He's doing the Symbol album or Diamonds and Pearls and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a hard business.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of not a lot more. I had some other slides I'm not going to show. I'll do them for another day. And
doing your edits live.
We could do the quick run through, speed run, because you got a lot good there. Show people.
Well, I kind of wanted it to go with what we're supposed to be reading, but we just had such a great conversation that people can read for themselves. But what I will do is in the book for August 6th on Saturday, when David Leonard is in the warehouse in St. Louis Park. And I wanted to read this quote, and I can't remember who is speaking, but the quote at the end of 125 before Let's Go Crazy basically says, and this is at the warehouse, a carpet was placed under the mixing board so it wasn't sitting on a bare floor and it was ready to go. The setup wasn't optimal by any standard. I'm assuming this is David Leonard. Or maybe, yeah. The setup wasn't optimal by any standard, but as Leonard explained, they found a way. Yeah, David Leonard. The band had a PA blasting, and I was in the corner of a warehouse, so I had to use headphones to record. It wasn't ideal, but the results were legendary. Now, the reason why that quote to me is super important, because this happens a lot with my students, is that they think they need the right gear or, and sometimes it's not about the gear. It's not about the room that you're in. It's about who you are and what you're doing with what you have. And I just thought that was really incredible. And correct me if I'm wrong, Anil, I think that Darling Nikki is the only song that was recorded at Coward Trail Home Studios. And
I think that's right. That sounds right to me.
Yeah, and then so like next week we're going to be talking about Let's Go Crazy and Computer Blue, which were both re-recorded at the warehouse. And like what we don't, we're not going to read all of this for the sake of time. But David Leonard in this part of the book basically talks about like the sound that you get in the warehouse and how that almost sort of is akin to a live sound because, you're in this warehouse space, versus like a performance hall. So when I was reading this, like in real time, I always felt that Darling Nikki was different. I mean, just sonic wise. Mm-hmm. And now it actually makes a lot of sense. you know, like knowing that, you know, these songs were recorded at First Avenue and then they were overdubbed. This one song was recorded at the crib. These songs were, you know, done at the warehouse. It's really interesting the way that they're able to craft the album with those different sound scenarios. So one of the things that we talked about last week, if you guys remember reading in the book, and if you're supposed to be keeping up with your reading, and so if you're not, you should be. So last week we talked about how they had sent Prince a new console. I want to say it was the API. I don't know my consoles because I'm not a recording engineer or whatever. And he didn't like it. So he wanted them to put back in the Soundcraft. And, you know, eventually he sold that Soundcraft board to Jesse. We talked about that last week. This week, you remember, you know, they had put this console back in the box. And so this is that console that they put back in the box is the console that they put in the warehouse in order to record these songs. I just think it's funny, you know, like, I don't like this, you know, I don't like this console, send it back. But then he ends up using it, you know, for, you know, the most critical album of his career. I just think
But it's also because they still probably remember being broken. It's like, you don't just throw away expensive gear. You got to do something with it until we sell it. Let's going to use it. You know, I mean, I think that's that thing of like, one of the most expensive things you do as a start out musician is like your gear is so expensive. And
yeah,
I think he's still in that mindset. You know, it changes by the time he gets to sort of Paisley Park and all that, where it's just like, spare no expense. Let's go all in and get the best of the best. But I think at this point, you spend the kind of money to get a console. You're like, I better use it. So
yeah.
That was his managers saying, Prince was like, well, I don't like the sound of it. Throw it away. Okay. And the manager, keep the change, get the change.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, he ain't
Who's got a truck?
he'll like it next week. Just get the kid what he wants.
Yes. So I have these slides of that I found online of someone, Nate Johnson. I don't know. He might be someone that I should know, but he posted these photos from Sunset Sound, and these were from 2019. So it was like, this is Studio 3, and this is basically the setup in 1983 of Studio 3, and you can see the console. Because the reason why I'm bringing this up, if you read in Dwayne's book, is that this console, the console that they sent Prince was supposed to kind of mimic the console that was in Sunset Sound. And because he liked the room, obviously, because he recorded a lot in there. And then this was the photo that Nate Johnson took in 2019. And I just thought it was just so cool that it seems like, you know, not much has changed between the 1983 photo versus 2019 photo, except for the chairs. So if you had like,
yeah, they really didn't mess with it.
Yeah, they really didn't mess with it, which is great. And then if you click on these images in the slide deck, it will actually take you, he took more photos of the entire Studio 3 room and like where the piano was placed and all of that. But I didn't want to like go into too much detail and bore people. But I just thought it was just really interesting how they still
and that
have.
piano is the one that like Lisa plays on the outro
Yes.
to Purple Rain and all that.
Yep. So I'm assuming it's the same one. I could be wrong, like and all that. So if you want to see that, it also mirrors you know, the studio at Paisley Park a little. Okay. So we're at the end. I still have some after stuff, Michael. So you just pop off whenever you need to, or if you want to say anything, you can just, but it won't be too much longer after this. So what did Prince do so far in 1983? So far, there have been 53 live shows total, because remember earlier in the year, we had our 1999 shows. We had one after show, and now we've had 36 studio visits, because I'm also counting, you know, going into the studio for, you know, listening to all of the tracks he recorded at First Avenue. 26 songs track. We won't go through these. We won't go through that. So I'm curious, did anyone go to last night's Mambo Combo performance?
Somebody in
Because
the
there
chat.
There's a couple folks in the chat saying they were there. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it? Can you tell us, like, what was the standout? Was there like a standout track? That'd be great to know.
And just they recreated or they redid this concert last night. Was that the thing?
They're supposed to like redo the entire performance, and then also there's an appearance by the Minnesota Dance Theater. So it would have been incredible to see that. But like I told you guys, I've been spending too much money on James Brown. You just don't even want to know. I've gone James Brown crazy, and a lot of stuff is out of print. Also, I want to give massive, massive gratitude to Mark Webster for making the Prince Rogers Nelson Memorial Highway a reality. This is a very historic moment, and I just adore that he insisted and he really fought to get these signs purple. So we got purple Prince highway signs, which is incredible. And it's also incredible that it runs right in front of Paisley Park, which I thought was just so thoughtful. And we just got to give some massive shout outs to Mark Webster and making that happen.
Yeah, salute to Mark, man. That's
I do want to say I'm still holding out for the airport being renamed Prince International.
wow.
So that when you land,
Are they
it
talking
says,
about that?
thank you
Ah,
for flying Prince International. They can do this. This is possible because it's named after Lindbergh. Lindbergh was racist. We don't mess with Lindbergh.
hilarious.
Take his name off, put Prince's symbol on there. Everybody's going to fly there just to get their ticket stamped, right? Like they're going to go. I'm telling you, it's a vision.
I-
Incredible. It can happen. It can happen for sure.
Prince International, love it.
Exactly. Tell me who's not. Thank you for flying Prince International. Everybody wants to. They want to put that on the PA once an hour, right?
That would be kind of dope.
That would be amazing. Come on.
That
See,
would
I
be
know y'all
incredible.
with me.
That would be dope.
We are with you. See, so many yes, Anil. Yes, yes.
I don't
And
know how
I
we make it
cannot,
happen.
I can't let this episode go by not thanking the one and only Eric Leeds for his time, because time is our most precious commodity, not money. Time is our most precious commodity, and that he chose to spend so much of his time with us because he didn't have to talk about two of my favorite albums, Things Left Unsaid and Time Squared. It was just a beautiful thing, and I learned so much, and I love the story that he told about Bonnie Boyer. I thought it was really brilliant. And then, so, one of the things that on the interwebs that people are talking about is the bit where he talked about Prince can't swing. And so on Twitter, Ruth chimed in, and I really loved her comments, and I wanted to actually read them really quickly. And Ruth says, haha, easy now. His brain was fast, meaning Prince, and he wasn't able to chart quickly. He could, just not interested when he could play instantly, record, and give it to someone else to do. But to say he didn't know how isn't accurate. I've seen some charting he did for Boom. Then she goes on to say, I know he said he couldn't read or write music, but that's because he didn't do it well. People scoff at his ability to play instruments. We had a convo about it. Basically, he can play any and every instrument you can put in front of him, but if he doesn't play it well, it's not in the CV. And so I thought it was really important because there was a lot of conversation about that. And then I also want to let everybody know that last week I didn't have time to make the accompanying playlist for last week because there's so much to add, but I have added everything in there, including the Foo Fighters cover version of Darling Nikki. Thank you so much, Arthur, for that, as well as a lot of other stuff, a lot of the other Eric Leeds interviews with everybody else. And then for this week, I do have the company playlist ready to rock. So for those of you who haven't seen the First Avenue show, you can go on the interwebs and find it. And then also WCCO released this week some new footage of Prince performing. I want to say it was Computer Blue at First Avenue. It's just like a wide shot that I had never seen. And the video quality is actually quite good. It's the second one. And then there's also a clip from WCCO about them installing the Prince Rogers Nelson Memorial Highway sign, which is really special to see. So if you want to see that, and then for those of you who may not have heard the hallway speech version, which is also on the deluxe edition of Purple Rain, you can also get it there. And I have to add Nero to the playlist because I thought I had added, but someone is telling me that I hadn't. So thank you for that. And then next week, we are going to be reading pages 125 to 132. We're going to be talking about Sunday, August 7th through Monday, August 8th. And it's actually going to be a do not miss episode because we're going to have a very special guest. And it's one of those occasions where if you miss it, you're going to be upset because you won't be able to interact with our very special guests. So you might think about what we're talking about right now. So that might give you some clues of who might be coming. So thank you so much, Anil. Again, time is our most valuable asset. I got hair flying around everywhere. Thank you so much for being here. It means so much. And I thought about who could talk about the August 3rd show. And I was like, Anil, of course.
I appreciate y'all having me, and I'm so grateful you do this. It's such a joy to get to watch, let alone to be on it.
Yes. So I was trying to make it to 2.5. So we went over a little bit. So I hope everyone has a great day. No, Just Rules. It's not Jill Jones. I would love for Jill to come on, but no, not Jill. Have a great Saturday, and we'll be back next week for week 32 of What Did Prince Do This Week? You want to take us out, Michael D?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen.
Work it like a job. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Thank you. Bye.